McDaniel can't move on it. Now he does. The shot, passing down. Rebound, score!
Hey, welcome to the Chill on the Crease podcast, where we talk about anything and everything to do with the NHL. I'm SJ, that's the co-host WillyDubz.
Yo, what's up, everyone? Hope everyone's doing fine. Friday, I think it's a Friday night for us, so we're chilling as usual.
Yeah, it's been a pretty busy week on mine. First, we had the we went to the OHL game on last Saturday, which was Oshawa and the Sioux Greyhounds, which I will say, I'm a fan. I'm a fan of the OHL games. Like, good value, good seats.
I remember during the game, you were kind of like, well, this is a lot more neutral zone, like not really like it wasn't a lot of shots.
Well,
right?
okay, that was like through the first period, but then third period when it became like the Sioux Greyhounds beating ass on Oshawa, I was like, oh yeah, this is suddenly a lot more. It started to open up a lot more on their end, at least. But yes, that first period, I think the shots were 8-4.
Yeah, for the Generals, right? 8-4 in favor of the Generals, and I think
but I will say, like,
funny enough, had the only goal.
Gameplay aside, I think the proposition value of like where you get to sit for the price, like the atmosphere, you do get to see the occasional guy who's about to make the NHL. In our case, we did, so that was pretty cool.
It was in our case, for those who don't know, it was Brady Martin. For those who don't know,
and some Reed guy who's apparently a top 10 pick. I don't know. Again, prospects is not my thing.
Yeah, Chase Reed. I think he's a defenseman. He's supposed to go in the top 15, top 10 range. I think I could be wrong. Someone in the comments could correct me, but that's what I saw when I was looking at like some of the
future Pittsburgh draft pick right there, 100% future. And then we had to witness the absolute devastation of the Jays Dodgers game 7. We went to the bar to watch that. Then Wednesday I had to I did something Monday that I'm blanking on, but then Wednesday I went to I had to take my sister to the All-Time Low concert. And yeah, here we are. That's why
did they do a lot more of their newer stuff, or did they? How was the? Because you were worried about
So one thing I appreciated about people. My general rule with bands, right, is play some of the hits. Play the hits, please, to an extent, because if you just play a bunch of new shit, for people like me that I know some of All-Time Low songs, but I'm not a big fan. My sister's like a hardcore fan, right? Most of the times I go to. I'm not a big concert guy generally. But I'll go because, she needs someone to go with.
Fair enough.
So generally, like a play the hits kind of guy, because I don't know some of the newer stuff. And also, it takes me a lot longer to get interspersed to newer stuff because it's not something I'm listening to. I'm not on the lookout for all the time, right? And it's not something that's always around, generally. It's not like every time you walk around or like, you just... throughout your day, you'll hear Espresso by Sabrina Carpenter. All-Time Low is not like that, right? Good band, though. Really good band. So I appreciate they play something. And one thing I do like, too, that they did is they have their previous set lists from other concerts on the tour. So you can actually go back. My sister sent me the set list that they played in Detroit at the Fillmore, I think it was a couple days ago before they came to Toronto. So I can actually look up some of the songs. I'm like, okay, cool. Like I can listen to some of this and have an idea of what it's going to be, which is nice. So yeah, no, it was really good. It was honestly like for a guy that's not super into them, but will listen to them. They're always I'll say this about All-Time Low, always a really good live event to go to. The music's really good. The performance is good. There's not a lot of transition stops in between. They do a couple like brief stops to switch maybe wardrobe or guitars, but outside that it's like quick. They get it all done. There's not a lot of it's just seamless and it's really well done. Like, and history in Toronto is also a really good concert venue.
Are you one of those guys who sings? Are you one of those guys that tries to sing along or nah? Or are you just kind of just vibing there?
When I know the song, yes. Otherwise, I'm just listening to the beat because I again. Also, I felt bad for security at the show because people were moshing and like they were starting to crowd surf to the front, right? And I felt bad for this one security guard because instead of like being spread out, it all funneled down to this one area where the one guy just happened to be. And at a certain point, it was just one person at a time. Then it started to become 2, then 3, then 4. And it started to look like, when you play a game and people start respawning? That's what it started to look like with the amount of people. It's like he put one guy down, another guy was like coming through. And I felt bad because this dude had long hair. So every time he had to keep adjusting his long hair back as he's like taking these people and like putting them away kind of thing. So it was really funny. But no, it was a really good concert.
Were they trying to rush the stage or like what was
No, they just wanted to crowd surf. It started with like one person. Everyone just started doing it at one point because there's like a mosh pit midway, and then people started crowd surfing. I've always never been I could never do the crowd surfing thing. I don't have that level of trust, to be honest.
That's fair. Well, also I think it's different. Like for example, like you versus me, right? I feel like obviously like I'm a much like lighter guy than you are, so like the crowds.
Yeah, I'm like 225, 230.
Yeah, you're 220. I'm barely 140 soaking wet. Like there's a massive difference there. So it's like I don't know.
But yeah, like History is also a really good venue. It's like a good mix. The food, like I'll say this, most venues don't have their food's pretty good. They have like Blondie's pizza. They have pretty good. Yeah, they have like popcorn shrimp, which is pretty good. Like service is good. History is a really good venue because there's sometimes you go to concerts and it's like the venue is definitely on the more dive bar side, which is fine for me because like again, I don't mind. I can but my sister's like 5'2", 120 soaking wet, so it's a little different for her. You know what I mean? So
she's the one that gets pushed around at the concert, eh? She just gets like.
Well, she always gets the nicer seats for that reason, right? So.
Oh, so she doesn't have to deal with that kind of crap. Fair enough.
Yeah, but I have noticed sometimes, for example, like when we'll go to Danforth Music Hall, which is a solid venue in its own right. It's just like sometimes if there's someone sitting in front of you that's taller, we have to switch seats, kind of thing.
Have you ever had a scenario where both the people in front of you were quite tall, and it was like it didn't matter if you switched seats, and she just couldn't see really well regardless?
No, it's always one because it's always if people go, it's always couples generally. So it's like there's the guy,
and the girl, like the one guy and the one girl. So you switch,
exactly.
To the side of the girl so that she can see a little bit better. Unless you get unlucky, and you hit one of those tall couples for some reason. Like you hit one of those tall ones, and you're just
if it
unlucky.
happens, it happens.
Unlucky.
I think I just take like the smaller, whatever the smaller person is, I have to guard up basically. But yeah, no, like that was pretty good. And then so week's just been busy, and then I think tomorrow I'm gonna go see Roofman, the Channing Tatum movie.
Okay, gotcha. Sorry, I didn't know what that was until like you had to mention movie. I was thinking I wasn't sure play movie. I don't know, like although you're not really a play guy.
It got good ratings, and it's based on a true story. And me and my sister have been wanting to go see it, but
so it's just you and your sister again. Okay.
Yeah, it's at the point where like they're only showing it in like 2 theaters kind of thing.
Wait, why?
So it's been out for 2+ weeks, I want to say.
Oh, okay, that's why. See, I needed that kind of context. I thought it was like a new release, and I was like, only 2 theaters already? That's kind of a little bit sketch, but maybe that's just me. I don't know.
But it's a good cast. I think Channing Tatum, Kirsten Dunst, if I remember correctly. So. I think next week too, I'm probably gonna go see The Running Man. But I feel like it's one of those movies I'm just gonna go by myself to see. I think.
Oh, you're just gonna go by yourself? Fair enough. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if there's like
for this movie. I thought you were going with like some of our friends. Like I was gonna say like context.
The Running Man.
I thought you were going with like Jesse Cheedy or like I don't know or some kind of like stuff. I thought you were going. With
it's just like sometimes. Okay, I'm weird. Like when it comes to things, I'll do by myself and I won't go to a restaurant and eat by myself. Like a sit down, but I will absolutely go to a movie by myself. And sometimes, honestly, like I don't mind just going to a movie because it's something like I don't really have to coordinate. Sometimes I can just go on my own, watch it. I can, do whatever and just leave. And sometimes it's just I like that flexibility of being able to do that. And sometimes I just like me time and like just being able, for example. One thing I like doing is just being able to read a book and just sit and like turn off my phone or like leave it on silent, just read a book for like 2-3 hours, right? Movie is kind of the same idea, and this isn't like a super popular movie. It's a movie based on a Stephen King novel that I've read, so I kind of just want to go watch it for that reason.
That's fair. I think for me, the only thing I'm okay with doing myself is funny enough. I don't mind going to like sporting events myself. I don't feel the need to have to go with friends. Like I remember last year, I think I went to the Canada Suriname game. I watched our men's national.
That's what I can't do. I'll admit that's one I can't do.
Like by yourself, you mean, or just can't do in general?
I can't. I can't do it. I can't do it.
Okay, because I usually go to the soccer ones. I was debating going to Canada, Ecuador, which is supposed to be next week on Thursday, but then the tickets were just too expensive for what kind of match it is. So I just was like, nah, I'm good.
I can't do that just because I feel like concerts and sporting events. I feel like I need the rule of two because I need one person to like kind of be like, hey, this is what's going on. You know what I mean? Otherwise, it's tough for me at least. It's
Well, concerts I can't do by myself for sure. Like I never go to a concert by myself. The sporting ones I don't mind if I just know, because usually I pick a sport that I'm pretty comfortable with and I just kind of watch. I just yell, scream, boo, cheer. Like there's a lot of those things you could do by yourself. It doesn't really matter, and I don't really talk to other people around me about it usually. So,
sporting events. I'm more inclusive. Like I just try to bring as many as people. Like we went to OHL game. There was like 5 of us, right? Like
yeah,
it's just one of those things where I'm like, okay.
It's funny
So,
because they moved the game time too, which is kind of funny.
God, that day was like so rough, man.
I mean, for context, I think you saw me almost throw a chair at the restaurant, right?
Yeah. So for people that don't know, again, we've been talking about like we're Jays fans. I mean, from Toronto, right? Born here. And man, that loss for people that don't know, if you've been living under a rock, because I think almost half of Canada tuned into the World Series at some point. The Jays lost to the Dodgers in 7 games, and like the level of gut punch that Game 7 loss was heartbreaking. People don't understand. I literally got home and just sat on the couch, like doing nothing. I just sat there for 20 minutes being like, did this actually just happen?
I think
with like that deep pit feeling in your stomach, you know what I mean?
Yo, I sat in the car. I don't know if you noticed. I don't know if you noticed, but I kind of sat in the car for a bit after. I just couldn't start driving right away because I was still like hit by the by the shock of it. And like I think you probably saw me after the double play happened. I just kind of stood there like just motionless kind of thing. And like I got a text from it's funny because I got a text from Jesse in the morning. He was like, "Dude, are you okay? You looked so you just looked like the life had been drained out of you."
I haven't felt that way since the Carolina Panthers lost to the Denver Broncos in that Super Bowl.
In the Super Bowl, yeah.
That was
so when one of your teams.
That was the last time I felt that way. And for people to understand, it's not that they lost. Like, look, we're Toronto sports fans. I mean, Wilson's a Leafs fan. Like, we've all dealt with losses, right? Like, to not if you can't handle losing in general, don't be a sports fan because it's cyclical. Your team's gonna suck at some point. Reality. It's just like the magnitude and the level of loss that hurts. And it's the idea of like, you don't know if you'll ever be back again. Like, let me give you an example, right? Before we talk about the Jays here. Like, again, Carolina Panthers fan for football. They lost to the Patriots in the Super Bowl, and that sucked. But at the same time, it wasn't that team. This wasn't this team that was expected to be there. It was kind of a fluke team that got there. There was this famous play against the Rams in the wild card or in the divisional round where the ball fumbled twice and Muhsin Muhammad recovered it in the end zone for a touchdown, just for example, right? So I didn't like that one sucked initially, but I didn't feel as bad about it. And the Panthers have lost games. I mean, they're the Panthers, right? But what hurt the most was that Super Bowl loss because for people to understand, like that team won 15-1 in the regular season. Cam Newton played at an MVP level. Luke Kuechly won Defensive Player of the Year. They made a bunch of midseason acquisitions that all worked out, like Jared Allen, Charles Tillman, and free agency signings that worked. And certain guys like played to the peak of their potential, right? And they go into the playoffs. They face Seattle, who's always been a struggle team for them. They kick the shit out of. Like, if anything, they let They let their foot off the brake in the Seattle game. They kicked the shit out of Arizona. Yeah. They kicked the shit out of Arizona. And they're going into the championship. And, like, they lost one game the entire year.
Was that the Arizona team that beat the Packers in OT?
With Carson Palmer, yeah.
Yeah, the Carson Palmer, the Fitzgerald one that got him all the way to the end. They did the pitch to Fitzgerald at the goal line. Yeah, okay. So that was I was kind of rooting for that Cardinals team that year.
And they kicked the shit out of the Cardinals. And all of a sudden you're looking at this. The Broncos, Peyton Manning was, like, the worst he's ever looked. And all of a sudden you go into the Super Bowl, you're like, okay, this is it. Like, this has to be the year. Everything has gone right so far. And we're just playing at a higher level. And when that Super Bowl happened, I remember they lost. And a lot of things that everything that could have gone wrong did go wrong in that game to an extent. And I remember when people lost, what people always told me was, oh, don't worry. Like, they have Cam, they have Keek, they have Olsen. Like, they'll be back. And I told people, no, they won't. Like, you don't understand because some years you can just tell when your team has the magic and things break your way. Again, guys play at certain levels and you can't replicate. Yes, you can have the same talent come back, but you can't replicate that year-to-year performance. And well, look what happened with the Panthers, right? Kuechly retired a couple years later. Cam Newton never hit that peak again and had injuries. Josh Norman was never all-pro again. He was basically out of the league a couple years later. Guys like Kawan Short, Shaq Thompson, like guys Thomas Davis, they just didn't play the same. Guys declined a bit. Guys left. Jared Allen, I think, retired after that year, if I remember correctly. Like a lot of things just didn't hit the same that year, the year after, and so forth. And even though the Panthers were a playoff team, a couple seasons, a year or two after, it just wasn't the same because you knew, right? And that's how I felt with the Jays because beginning of the year when the Jays started, everyone thought they'd finish fourth in the AL East, right? And all of a sudden, early part in the year, they're basically 500. Everyone's talking about, hey, should Mark Shapiro and Ross Atkins, are they going to be fired because they haven't won a playoff game and they've been here a decade? That was a real conversation. And all of a sudden they start winning, and it's and yes, it's the usual suspects, but it's guys you've never heard of. Like there were guys like Nathan Lucas, who I never heard of play basically up until this year. Guys started to play out like George Springer, who was basically in decline for 2 years, suddenly had a resurgent year. Bo Bichette led the league in hits, which is crazy. For,
and
if
he
you
bounced
looked
back
at
from one of the worst seasons he had last year too.
Right.
So we didn't know which version of Bo we would see. Ernie Clement kind of came out of nowhere. Great Gold Glove.
Addison Barger, to an extent, came out of nowhere. And we didn't know what to make of this team because it was a bunch of... And Dalton Varsho, who, was a bad... Don't get me wrong, has pretty much been a bad hitter most of the time he's been in Toronto. He still had the same batting average and on-base percentage, but somehow he was slugging the shit out of the ball. And there's no rhyme or reason for it. He was just doing it, right? And they go to the playoffs as... And here's the other thing, too. Another thing. They get near the playoffs. They basically win on a tiebreaker with the Yankees. So they don't have to play the wild card series, right? And which they would have had to face Boston. Who knows?
Playoffs or home field for the playoffs.
Yeah.
Most of the playoffs, essentially.
While the Jays had injuries through the regular season, obviously Bo was hampered in the playoffs. Like, a lot of teams had worse injuries. Like, let's be honest. Like, the entire Orioles roster was decimated at some point during the year. Like, Grayson Rodriguez gone. I swear they were starting like I think they were like throw out 8-9 pitchers at some point during the year. But like Grayson Rodriguez was done. Gunnar Henderson had like to miss the first month-ish with an oblique and came back and still wasn't right here and there. Rushman was on the IL here and there. Certain guys just declined randomly, and it just wasn't, it wasn't what we expected the Orioles to be. The Yankees lost Garrett Cole right when the season.
And then they also lost Clark Schmidt at some point during the year too. I think he had to get Tommy John, I think. So another one of their starters that
the Red Sox lost Roman Anthony, who was arguably like their best player like right before the playoffs, right? And or who was their best hitter. And then they had to trade Devers over like a weird conflict where he didn't want to play first base, but he goes to San Francisco and he's playing first base randomly. So, and all these things are going on, and you notice that, and again, the Jays make it basically on a tiebreaker with the Yankees, so they don't have to play the wild card. And this whole time, you're like, okay, well, they have to face Fried, Rodon, Schlittler, etc. Maybe it's the Yankees, maybe, and they smash the Yankees. And the Yankees have always been a thorn in the Jay side. They smashed the Yankees. Like, it's not even close, realistically.
Like, I remember the Savage no hit start in Game 2. I remember everybody after we won Game 1, everyone was like, "Oh, it's just Savage versus Fried." Like all the Yankees, I remember all the Yankees fans were just so overconfident. It's like, "Oh, we got this. It's our best pitcher against a guy who's pitched 3 regular season games.
Yeah.
Like we got this." It's like because they were arguing like they had to start Luis Gil in Game 1 against Kevin Gossman, which is a complete mismatch pitching wise, right? And they were like, "Oh, the Game 2, it's a mismatch, but in favor of us. We got Fried going against Savage." And then what ended up happening was Fried got lit up for 5 runs. I think he had only allowed 1 run his past 20 innings before that start. And then Savage pitched in 5 1/3 innings of no hit ball and 11 strikeouts. Just about everything you could have asked for.
Yeah, and they get to the Mariners series, and here's the reality: like, did the Mariners play well? No, but realistically, like, they were 4 outs from winning, right? And all of a sudden, George Springer hits that hit where you're saying Toronto sports.
I think it was 5 outs, but
5 outs. Sorry, but this never happens in Toronto sports,
right? It was 7th inning,
what?
right? Bottom of the 7th. 2. I think
I
they
thought it
were
was
8
the
outs
8th.
away. No,
My
it was,
bad.
it was
Okay,
seven,
well,
it was seven,
whatever.
but it was like they were 8 outs away.
But point being, what never happens in Toronto sports is where like the teams they get to Game 7, the team's down, you think they're out, and all of a sudden George Springer hits this home run, and it's the only after that home run there were no runs scored in the game, and we're freaking out because all of a sudden we're like, holy shit, the Jays are going to the World Series. Everything that could have gone right has gone right so far. Ernie Clement is hitting like Joe DiMaggio. Addison Barger is hitting out of his mind. Vlad's hitting like peak Barry Bonds. And they didn't have Bo Bichette back basically until the end of the series. And it hasn't mattered. Not to mention, again, Trey is coming out pitching like Josh Beck, playoff Josh Beckett. Kevin Gausman's playing really well. The bullpen's held down here and there, at least so far, which was a major issue. And they faced the Dodgers. You're like, well, okay, the Dodgers are a different beast, right? The Dodgers are, the tech bro, they're the tech bro Death Star, right? And the Jays come out and beat the shit out of them game 1. They run in through the 18-inning game, and you're like, okay, well, maybe, I guess this is the end, because how do teams recover from this? They win the next 2. And all of a sudden, they're up 3-2. They just have to go home for the next 2 games. Yes, they have to get through Yamamoto, who is like their Baba Yaga, basically, but they have 2 games at home to win it. The Dodgers are hitting like shit, outside of Ohtani's one good game, and Will Smith being here and there. Most of the Dodgers are hitting like shit. Mookie Betts is a lost cause this series, right? Max Muncy, I think he had 2 hits up until Game 7. Like, lost cause for most part. And, Yamamoto beats them in Game 6. And Game 6, they lose on like this weird base running blunder. Game 7 comes up, and the Jays take the lead 3-0 on a Bo Bichette homer where the Dodgers make the mistake. They leave Ohtani in too long, right? And suddenly you feel like the 3 runs felt like enough versus a Dodgers offense. And they slowly start chipping, but the Jays are still up. They bring in the closer, and this whole time we're afraid of Shohei Ohtani, and we're like, okay, worst case, you can walk Ohtani. We're thinking about in the 9th inning. Miguel Rojas, okay? This guy's slugging 300. Well, actually, before that, Chris Bassett's in the 8th inning. Max Muncy comes up. This man has just 2 hits all series. He's basically been automatic out.
I think it was Savage in the 8th. I think Savage gave up the home run. He hung the. Savage was the one who hung.
Okay, whoever it was. Point being, Max Muncy had 2 hits the entire series leading up to that. Hits like a no doubt homer. I think that was like second deck cranked that like Soldier Boy, right? And we're like, oh shit. But the bottom of the order's coming up minus Ohtani. And Jeff Hoffman's pitching. And all of a sudden, Miguel Rojas, the man who's hit 7 homers the entire year, slugged 300. This guy's not a real hitter. Like, cranks it off Jeff Hoffman. No doubt homer to tie the game up. The Jays come up in the 9th inning. The Dave Roberts decides to put Andy Pajas in, who hasn't hit for shit, but is like a defensive replacement. Makes a crazy play where if it's like 1 inch one way, 1 inch the other way, the Jays win the World Series, right? And then Will Smith hits a home run. Yeah, and then the Will Smith homer. But the Jays still have a chance, and it's like the slowest guy they could bring up, and the only way they could lose is a double play. And he hits into like a tailor-made double play where Mookie Betts doesn't even have to throw the force. Huh?
Yeah, his bat breaks. Ball hits right to Betts. Betts grabs it, runs across the
doesn't even have to make the force. He just runs it himself to second and throws it. And for people that don't understand, it's like an all-time gut punch because there were so many ways it could have gone the other way. And like through this whole storyline, I'm thinking to myself, this is a story you tell your friends or if you have kids when you grow up. Like the story of this team that like overcame everything and everything felt like a story. It was supposed to be this storybook ending with all these twists and turns. And it didn't happen. And what breaks my heart the most is not only that, like, they got that far and, to quote Linkin Park, I don't want to say in the end it didn't matter, but that's what it felt like. But
it doesn't matter. It's
this idea that I don't know. It's that feeling of like, I don't know if they'll ever be back because so many things had to go right. And that's the thing. When people come to you and they say, oh, they'll be back. I'm like, look, again, Clement hit like Joe Mauer, peak Ted Williams. Addison Barger hit like, if it wasn't Ted Williams, it was like Joe DiMaggio. Vlad hit like peak Barry Bonds. Again, Trey Savage pitched really well. The bullpen minus the end held down really well. even guys you didn't expect who are still like zeros at the plate. Like even Andres Jimenez was okay for what he normally is, right? And all these, and George Springer again turned back the clock for this year and the playoffs as well. And all these things don't happen normally in a year. Like the Jays could still be good next year and make the playoffs, but if everyone hits at their regular season norms, the Jays are out in the second round. Like that's the truth, right? And that's what sucks about it. Is like, yes, again, do I think they'll be a solid team next year? Sure, but it's like all the magic, all these guys that had these, all these guys that had these career performances, and the Dodgers hit 208 that series too. The Dodgers, it's not like the Dodgers like just bombed out too. The Dodgers hit terribly. They literally relied on one outside of one pitcher. The Jays were hitting everybody. I'd say Glasnow to a lesser extent, but outside of Yamamoto, pretty much the Jays were hitting everybody. They were hitting up again Glasnow to a lesser extent, but Snell, Ohtani, Sasaki. It didn't matter, right? And that again, all those breaks, and they still couldn't get it done. It's like that's what hurts. That's what it felt like somebody just went into your chest, took your heart out, and just like held it in front of you, kind of thing, and squished it, right? Like. That's what hurts. It's like you don't know if that's all going to come back. Because again, the Jays could make the playoffs next year, but if everyone hits to their career norms, maybe they lose in the wild card round. If next year, again, if Springer declines, if their pitching rotation declines due to age, maybe somebody gets hurt. Like, what if Kevin Gausman, again, knock on wood, what if Kevin Gausman gets hurt the same way Garrett Cole did to start the year? It's like you just don't know. So when you have those chances, you have to capitalize. And that's what sucks because it's like we just don't know if they'll be back. Like if the Dodgers lost this series, I have no doubts they'll be back because they'll sign like 4 Japanese guys and probably trade for Tariq Skubal and maybe sign Kyle Tucker too. Who knows?
Yeah, I was going to say, they're gonna have that super team again. But with this team, it's a little bit different. They're just
it felt like it was lightning in a bottle and we let it out. And that's what hurts.
Yeah, okay, we move on. This is kind of depressing just talking about this. I'm not gonna lie. It's like it feels like
it's why I talk about wounds. And it's why I talk about, to tie it all back to hockey to an extent, is like when people go, "Oh, these teams will be back." People said this about Florida and Edmonton this year, and like, do I think Edmonton will be in the playoffs and Florida will be in the playoffs and be fine? Sure, to an extent, but it's like there's a chance with both those teams that the magic might not be there. Like again, I think Edmonton will be fine, but you can see
Florida's case, like,
you can see that
like Barkov. Because Barkov's out pretty much the whole year. It's like, and they don't look great right now. It's like, there's a chance.
Yeah, Barkov's been pretty much out the whole year. Tkachuk's been hurt. They're signing. Don't get me wrong, Bill Zito. He picked up some. I forget his name, like Dobrake. I'm blanking on the guy's name. They picked up somebody like randomly off waivers that's been pretty good for them. But like, they're scrapping just to try to make the playoffs right now. And that's what's guys playing better than I expected, like Mackey. Lundell, right? Guys like that. But it's like, they had the Barkov and Tkachuk injury. You could tell the Oilers offense, which I think will be fine because they have Draisaitl and McDavid, but the Oilers offense right now is a mess. And Darnell Nurse is playing like one of the worst defenders in hockey. And again, there's a chance that like maybe both those teams don't get back. Because again, Colorado looks really good right now. Vegas looks really good, right? Like Vegas looks pretty good right now. There's a chance that, and you see the rise of teams like Utah and to a lesser extent Anaheim. And again, I think in the East, you see the rise of Montreal. It's like all these things can happen in a vacuum. And sometimes it's like, while you think you might be back, there's not that guarantee, right? And that's what, and when I tell people like, that's what hurts. And when I talk about windows, that's what I mean. It's like this idea of like, it felt like it was all right there. And then when you miss out, you don't know if you're ever coming back. That's just the reality of sports.
It is what it is. And sometimes you come
and
back,
think about all,
but for the most part, you don't come back, right? Think about the teams that
I think certain sports have kind of warped our mind, and you see teams like the Chiefs where they've made, they won the 3 straight Super Bowls. You see, the Penguins where they won 3 cups. But even people think about with the Penguins, right? Like they made 2. There was almost an 8-year gap in between making the next 2 after that. But think about some of the teams they beat that never made it back, right? Like remember, Nashville was a good team when they played Pittsburgh. Like, they lost Ryan Johansson during a series, and that made an impact. But, like, they were a good team. San Jose was one of the best teams in the Western Conference the entire, like, for a decade.
And they
never
only
made it
there
back,
once.
right?
Yeah, they only ever made it there that one time.
The Ducks were a really good team, and they made it once and won it once, right? And I'm talking about like the Getzlaff Perry iteration, not the one where Jaguar hard carried the Ducks that one year, right? Like,
Yeah,
but that's what I mean. Like sometimes
but they made it twice, and they won it the one time. But even the two times they made it, like there was a gap between when they made it back, right? Like it's never a guarantee that you'll make it back, which is it is just the way that sports is.
Right. Like again, people talk about the Stars. It's like the Stars made 3 Western Conference finals. There's I don't know if like they're off to a slow start. Like granted, some of it's coaching transition, but like I don't know if they'll make it back to the Western Conference this year. Western Conference final. I have no idea. And it's just one of those things where it's tough, and that's what hurts. And like I always tell people, never take those runs for granted, because you just never know. It could have just been lightning in a bottle.
Exactly.
Because with the Jays, I hate to say it, people point.
Yeah,
because people point to the Royals team that lost and then made the World Series next year. But for every Royals team, there was the Mets that made it once and never made it back. There was the Braves. They won it, never made it back. And the Braves have a really good young talent core, right? The Rays made it, never made it back. Like there's more teams. The Yankees have made one World Series since 2008. The Yankees.
Yep, and that was the one last year. Yep.
Yeah. It's just the reality that it's more likely you don't make it back. That's why, again, I like when I see teams like people talking about like Florida, Edmonton, like there was kind of an arrogance there. I'm always like, man, I hate to say it, you really don't know. As much as
I think that's what you're talking about when sports kind of warps your perception of it, right? Because like we've seen Florida, Edmonton for like essentially two straight years, right? Like everyone thinks like, oh, you can make it back. Same thing with the Chiefs, right? Even like, seeing the Chiefs get the 3 straight Super Bowls, everyone's like, oh, they can always make it back. But even with those teams, like you're starting to see stuff fall apart. Like the Chiefs, like with all the injuries they've had, like they're actually currently sitting outside of a playoff spot, which is quite unusual for them. I think we mentioned Florida, their guys, like just a lot of their key guys are hurt, and they're being forced to play guys like further up the lineup, which some of them have adapted well, but even then it's like that loss of depth really does slim your margins, right?
And
then
think about some of the breaks, and people forget some of the breaks teams had in the playoffs, right? Like, yes, some of them are minor than us. Like, yes, did the Oilers smash most of the teams they faced in the Western Conference? For sure. But people forget they were 1 game away from going down 3-0 to LA. Corey Perry played out of his mind for them that playoffs, right? They were like a bad Calvin Pickard start from being down 3-0 to them. Again, Colorado, like I think of a team like Dallas. Dallas was 1 OT away from not making 1 OT goal away from not making it out of the first round. Florida was 1 OT goal away from going down 3-0 to the Leafs. And like OT games are basically a coin flip. It's like
they are.
That's what I mean. Yeah. And even like as good as those teams are in other series, there are these micro moments that also help define whether you get to that point you got to. Like I said, with the Jays, if that let's say Seattle brings in Munoz and Springer flies out, or let's say Bastardo throws that ball and it's a fly out instead of a homer, the Jays are basically out of the playoffs, right? And it's like it's different. That's just the reality, and like, that's why you have to take advantage of the breaks when you can. But yeah, we'll stop talking about the Jays. Yeah, sorry. It was. All right, so today, I know there was a long preamble before we actually really started talking hockey, but we do have to talk about hockey. It's just, we had to do some catharsis here. So today we got a couple things to talk about. We're going to talk about some contracts, a contract signing, I guess. And
there's technically 2. There was the Natchez one and the Markstrom one, right? The Markstrom one less.
Okay, we'll talk about both. That's fine. And then we'll talk about. So again, it's still early. I think the most games a team has played, like teams haven't even hit the 20 game mark yet. So we're going to talk about 3 teams. Yeah, we're going to talk about 3 teams we're high on coming out of this early stretch, and 3 teams we're concerned about. The rest we kind of let to see play out, just because there's still a lot of hockey to be played, and teams are really figuring out lines and feeling, and I think like dealing with early season injuries and like feeling things out. So we'll talk about, again, the 3 teams we kind of believe in rest of the year, and then the 3 teams where I'd be panicked a little bit if I were you. So let's start with the Martin Necas contract. So it was interesting because a lot of people talked about how he wasn't happy in Colorado, and there were real rumors that he wouldn't sign. which was always like
And
a
then he
funny
signed-
thing to me because
And then he signed an 8-year deal with
Yeah.
I think a full
So-
no movement clause essentially for the first 7
Yeah,
years.
exactly.
essentially. So
yeah.
guess he's not leaving.
So Natchez signed for 8 years with an $11.5 million AAV. So a couple things. I'll talk about the on ice fit first. One, I'm like, even though Colorado's a division rival, I'm glad he signed with Colorado because his play style fits McKinnon perfectly. McKinnon and Makar love to break into the zone with speed, and Natchez is one of those wingers where he's not much of a creator, but if you set up for him and he can fly through the zone, he can score. And he's like one of the higher end guys like that. And I think he's a perfect fit for what Colorado wants to do. And he's also pretty durable in terms of in-game. Like, he doesn't tire. So with Jared Bednar's system where he does play his first line more minutes than the average team, it does fit with them as well. And like I said, the way when you watch him, McKinnon, and Makar break into the zone with speed and being able to like cause so much chaos from getting in there with speed and then being able to set up, I think Natchez is a perfect fit for this team. And I'm glad that they got this done because I think this is such a valuable piece to have alongside McKinnon's play style. And it's interesting because it is a little bit different than Rantanen, where Rantanen's a lot more lumbering, but he's obviously a better finisher. So it is kind of interesting to see how the contrast works, but I think it works. Well, I don't think obviously Natchez is as good as Rantanen. I think it's weirdly a slightly better fit.
It's a better fit. I think plus also Rantanen, I guess Natchez is 26 when he's signing this deal, right? So I think this contract is going to also age very well too. I think Jobber Hockey uses this general rule where they usually take a player's age and they divide it by 2, and then they add the total number of years to the age after you divide it by 2, and essentially if that number is like 21 or like lower, like you're typically, I think the contract's typically a good contract. Now it's not a proven statistic, but it's a pretty good rule to determine if it's going to be a good contract. I think in Natchez's case, his number adds up to exactly 21, and I think if you look at it, his contract's going to end when he's around 34, which is actually a pretty good age for the contract to end by, because he'll probably be declining a bit by then. But then I think for the most part, you got a lot of value out of the contract by that point. That maybe you only have one or two, maybe one bad year, 2 if you're really unlucky, but like one bad year on the contract, you got like 7 good ones. And I think if you're Colorado, you're perfectly okay with that.
Yeah. And I think if you look at contract comparables, like the 11.5 fits in line. Again, you're paying a premium so he doesn't hit free agency, because free agency, we'll talk about this in a second, is looking very bleak. And yeah, he got less than Kyle Connor, Mitch Marner, which again, he's not those guys, but I think he's
also
a step below.
It's a rising cap too. I think
and he is younger than Kyle Connor.
So with the rising cap, like a lot of these guys getting paid 11.5, it kind of makes sense. It'll make sense as the years pass by. Like, it doesn't look so great when you look at it context wise right now, but it's gonna be fine in like a year or two when you realize how much the cap's gone up by, and you see some other contracts that'll get signed a little bit later. Like, it makes sense.
And if you're the Avs, you also needed this cost certainty because you're basically blank checking Cale Makar, realistically. Like, whatever he wants, he's going to get. And because of that, you kind of need to make sure you have certain guys under contract. And right now, if I look at their roster here, 1 second.
Well, they have most of the key guys locked down, right? Because they have McKinnon locked down. They have Blackwood locked down. They have they got Natchez now. So I think
they have Devin Taves. They have Nichushkin, they have Landeskog, they have McKinnon, they even have Brock Nelson for 3 years, or 2 years after this one. Yeah, it's pretty much, and like you have to have all those guys because you're gonna, like I said, you're gonna blank check Cale Makar because his contract comes up the year after this one, and you want to get that extension done this offseason. So I think it's a perfectly good deal for both teams. People that criticize it because Rantanen signed for 12, the context is a bit different there. One, no, like while Rantanen, you knew the cap would go up, no one knew to what extent. And 2, Rantanen was kind of in a weird spot where he didn't want to be in Carolina, and he was kind of afraid to hit free agency after being traded to Dallas, so he just kind of signed right then and there. And then if people want to count the state income,
too, was his play in Carolina wasn't like the advanced analytics were there, but then his numbers in Carolina weren't super great either. So like,
right.
It may have hurt his leverage to a certain extent. Like maybe people were like,
no, yeah, there was a real conversation about. Yeah, there was a real conversation about how good is, which is weird in hindsight, but there was a conversation at the time of like, okay, well, he doesn't have McKinnon, like, what's he going to do, kind of thing, right? And there was, until the playoffs, there was a real conversation. And even in the playoffs at the time, too, he was inconsistent. Like, there were games where he'd have, like, 2 straight games of no points and then explode for
I remember
4
the first
in one
round. I think
game,
the first
right?
4 games he had like a few points. I think it was
Yeah,
like 5, 6, and 7 in round one against. Funny enough, his old
yeah.
team. He just suddenly, I think, what 11 point was it like 11 points in three, like the last 3 games or something ridiculous. Just
Yeah,
something
it was
ridiculous.
something absurd like that, yeah. But yeah, no, that's why I think it's interesting that but that's why I think I have no issues with the way this deal got done. I have no issues with the way it got signed. I mean, the only thing you can say is like Natchez' playoff numbers do need to be better, especially for a team with the expectations that Colorado does. And I think that's the differentiation between a guy like him and a guy like Rantanen. But I mean, there is enough. There isn't. It is still a relatively small sample size that I think he'll be fine overall. I like. It's rare that guys have that precipitous of a drop relative to their regular season stats. So I think it'll normalize in time. Do I think he'll be like an elite playoff performer like Rantanen? Probably not. But do I
No.
think he'll be capable? Sure.
Yep. I mean, there's not much else to say about this contract, right? I
Yeah.
think like Colorado needed to get this one done because I think once they got him locked in, I guess it does also signal their intent, like their intent to be, like to continue to be a contender, right? Because they've locked up pretty much all their
Yeah.
key pieces apart from I think Makar is literally the only one, like out of all their big fish, he's the last piece left to lock up. And now that they got this done, they can actually
Yeah.
focus on getting an
Pretty
extension for him.
much.
Because like
Yeah. Pretty
realistically, I'm
much.
looking at some of their contracts. Like I don't really care. Like I like Arturi Lekin as a player, but like if you're gonna have to, I'd rather
Well,
just
he's
pay
also going to be
McCarr extra money.
32 by the time. Yeah. Ross
And
Colton,
something like
same thing. He's
Ross
going to be
Colton,
31. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah. So overall, I think that's all you can say with the Markstrom extension. I mean, it's kind of weird because there's not much to say either. It's like, yeah, am I a fan that New Jersey has two like 32 age 32 plus goalies? No, but who else was available? Sorry,
Well, I
age
think it
both of
also
them are 35. Sorry,
I think it works
but
out though because the reason why it works out for New Jersey though is because they got Allen for so cheap, like for 1.8. That like if you paid Markstrom just a
yeah,
little, if you slightly overpaid him, it kind of worked. Like both their goalies combined are, I guess, like starting from next year, it's under 8 million for
7-8.
both of them.
Yeah,
It's 7.8 exactly. And it's funny because Markstrom's actually being paid 6 million right now. It's just that I think Calgary retained some of it, so that's why New Jersey's
yeah,
paying
yeah.
4.1. So this the two additional years of the extension for 6 mil per, basically just paying him the same, like basically the same thing for the 2 more years. His numbers have
But
been fine.
I think if you look at their cap situation too, like Markstrom is basically, I think the years he's been in New Jersey minus the playoffs, he's basically been a league average goalie. Which I hate to say it, if you're a league average starting goalie, like 6 mil is kind of the ballpark. But I think what's interesting is again we talk about cost certainty. You do want cost certainty heading into having to pay certain guys. Nico Heishier's contract comes up the same time Makar does. So not this off season, but the next off season. That's a guy you want to lock down. Dalton Mercer is going to be RFA, and like with the increased deployment, he's been really good this year. There are guys you're going to have to pay on this team, and when Markstrom's contract comes up, what's interesting is a lot of their like higher price contracts come up as well. So like Dougie Hamilton's making 9 mil, he's a UFA after that year. Palat making 6 comes up the year before, but they're probably going to let him walk. So a lot of interesting pieces that are coming up, and they're going to have a flush amount of cap space in the next 2 years, basically, because they have Hughes, Meyer, Bratt, um, and again they're like Luke Hughes locked down. That it's going to be kind of interesting to see what they do. So having Markstrom at least for the next 2 years gives you cost certainty heading into that period, which I think is really important for what New Jersey wants to do, and also gives you some extra time because like maybe by then Nico Dawes is ready and you can just start playing him as like your goalie in a split with Allen, or maybe you
I
just
guess.
trade for the next goalie that's available with the amount of assets they have, because at some point I think they at some point too, it also gives you 2 years to plan for what the succession plan is for Markstrom, who's going to be 37, Allen, who will be 37, where you have guys like Nemec, Seamus Casey, who are playing bottom pairing deployment right now. And if
And
you
you
could
can use
flip
one
one
of
of
them to
those
make a
from,
move for a goal. Yeah, for a goalie,
yeah,
right? You can use him in like a first. Maybe he'll get you like a decent goalie. That's your next guy, right? Or like I was even gonna joke like you look at a team like San Jose. It's like, if we figure it out of Ravensburg and Askarov, who's the starting goalie, maybe the other piece there you get the other one. I know,
and you
bit
can
of
make
a
a
weird option
perfect
'cause,
D man for, yeah. Mm-hmm.
yeah, and it makes more sense because San Jose desperately need a defenseman. So it's like, oh hey, we'll give you Nemec in a first for, I don't know, let's say like, I don't know, Ravensburg, or Scarov hasn't looked great so far. But again, my point is there you have pieces to make some moves to kind of like improve your team in other spots, right?
Exactly. Yeah, those are the only two things I have to really say in the signing. It's just overall, I think both teams are signing guys now to get that cost certainty in, and it's again, I think they're both good fits for the rosters they're on, realistically.
Yeah.
All right, so moving on to our next segment. Again, like I said, these are less than 20 games, but there are some things we've noticed about certain teams. So again, these are the three teams we're high on, the three teams we're concerned about. Which one did you want to start with?
Do you want to go with the teams we're high on first? Let's start with the good.
Okay. All right. So three teams I'm high on. The first one, again, Ducks fly together. Can we just say that? Look, first of all, outside of the Gordon Bombay jacket, which I think is an awesome piece of lore that goes on in the Ducks locker room, the Ducks. So the Ducks are kind of interesting to me because we talked about maybe them hitting their upside potential as like if you're taking a bet on the Ducks being good, you're betting on the upside of this roster versus anyone else in the Pacific and the upside kind of thing. And I think the Ducks are kind of interesting because okay, look, here's the reality. Do I think they're this good right now, where they're 9-3-1 leading the Pacific? No. There are some things that point to this team way outperforming. One, if you look at their underlying metrics, they're 30th in expected goals for. They are 26th in expected goals against. They are 28th in high danger chances against. They are, let's see. Well, they're 6th in high danger chances for, which is good. But overall, they're not. And if you look at their overall shots, they are.
16th,
Where are they in shots? 16th.
Yeah.
And so they're not. It's not a team that's. It's kind of interesting because it's a team that's expected to regress because one, their shooting percentage is third in the league at 13.4%. What they do under Joel Quenneville's system is they're not putting up volume of shots. They're targeting specific shots and being very selective, which can work in certain runs, but over time, it just, again, regression to the mean hits. So that is the thing. I don't think they're going to be leading the division. I don't think, they're going to be over like Vegas and Edmonton by the time it ends. But what I will say is from where they were last year to this year, I'd be over the moon if I was a Ducks fan. Because we were talking about this last year. It's like, what does this team need to do? They need to develop their young talent. They need to let them play and make mistakes and kind of figure out what their identity is and just kind of go from there. And from what Leo Carlson, Cutter Gauthier, Olin Zellweger, like certain guys look like last year to what they are now. Like the jump some of these guys have made under Joel Quenneville is ridiculous. Just to put this in perspective for you guys,
I think mainly Carlson and Cutter Gauthier, right? Those are the two biggest ones who probably made the biggest leaps. I think. And I think just Quenneville letting the young guys kind of play more offensive hockey has just worked out better for the Ducks because the issue is the Ducks have so many good like young offensive players, right? I think your best place is just let them I would say basically just let them fun and gun, right? Just let them kind of play
really makes me wonder. It really makes me wonder what the heck Cronin was doing. Because let me go over like the leap just on a statistical level, right? Like, okay, Carlson's right now, and again, I don't think this will maintain, but he under Cronin the 2 years he was at 0.59, like 0.53, 0.59 points per game. He's at 1.54 right now. He went from less than 2 shots on goal per game to 2.23. His expected goals for percentage is insane. And Gauthier is even more marked where, again, went from 0.54 points per game, being moved all over the place, and 2.32 shots on goal per game to like, right now he's shooting 4.77 shots on goal per game, and he's over a point per game. Just those two guys alone. And if I'm the Ducks, I'm ecstatic because, again, you're talking about guys who are 21 and 22 making these leaps. And I will say, if nothing else, this shows you the difference in coach, what a difference coaching can make. Like for me, Joel Quenneville coming a year out of coaching, like not even coaching at all, and doing this, it just shows, one, it shows you how bad of a coach Cronin was, and two, it shows you what you can do if you just kind of like, again, do what you're supposed to do with a young developing team. Keep the lines constant, let them develop chemistry, let them play to their strengths. Because with Cronin, it was a lot of north south, a lot of like kind of, I don't want to say Rick Talk in hockey, but like a lot of like dump and chase guys not playing to the strengths. This is a lot more different. The breakouts are a lot more. It's chaotic, yes, when they enter the zone sometimes, but it's a control chaos, right? Because they're playing to their strengths. They're letting you get to see Carlson break out more. You get to see Gauthier hit the corners, hit the net more. And yes, does it create some high danger chances and bad opportunities the other way? Yeah, sure. But A, that's what you have Lucas Dostal for. And B,
Yeah.
that's what a young team is supposed to do. And so, do I think this team is going to lead the Pacific the entire year? No, but I think this team can make. I think this team can make a wild card spot just based on playing similar to what we talked about the Columbus Blue Jackets style. Just play a high danger offense. You're going to give up some chance. You're going to give up some high danger chances, but have a good goalie to back you up. And that might be enough to that in the Pacific, especially that should be enough to get a wild card spot, especially if you gather enough games early.
Well, the other thing I want to point out too was like under Cronin last year, they were kind of a similar team, except their offense was even worse, right? They still allowed a shit ton of shots, and they weren't playing good defensive hockey, and their offense was kind of atrocious, right? But I think the difference, it's funny because you mentioned the Blue Jackets. The difference between the Blue Jackets and the Ducks, like the Blue Jackets of last year and the Ducks of this year, is that the Ducks actually have good goaltending, right? Because I remember like with the Blue Jackets, we had to deal with Elvis and Tarasov, and it was probably it was one of the worst, like apart from the Fedotov Urson goaltender duo, it was probably one of the worst like goaltending duos in the league, right? So the fact that Anaheim already has Dostal, even though they're still allowing a shit ton of high danger chances against, they don't have a good penalty kill, and their expected goals against at 5-on-5 is still pretty rough. You can get away with that when you have a good goalie, and when your young guys are scoring though, and your forwards are playing the way they are and scoring. I think you said they can make a push for a wildcard spot. Like just for context, the Blue Jackets without good goaltending missed out on the playoffs by 1 point. So if the Ducks have good goaltending and they can like continue to at least score a bit, like a little, maybe not like this the whole season, but like score like close to this for a bit, I think the wildcard's well within reach.
And not only that, like you have to be ecstatic with like how everyone's fit under Quenneville. Like Chris Kreider, who we thought was a bad trade, like he's helped the power play a lot. He's been a really good net front presence for either the first or second line whenever he's been on, and he's been really good. Like there was a really good tip in. There was two really good tip goals he made. One against the Stars, which was like I was kind of annoyed by, but kind of blown away at the same time. But he's been really good. Trouba only took like one bad penalty like the entire month, which is for Trouba, you guys don't understand. Like that's absurd. But also, and now all of a sudden I look at this team a lot differently because we were wondering earlier in the year, is like before the year started, is Carlson even like based on the way he's played the last years, is he even a number one center? Like what is he? And is McTavish the guy? But now it's like you have Carlson as your one, you have McTavish as your two. You have Cutter Gauthier as your line one power forward, basically. You have Lacombe, you have Zellweger, you have Dostal. There's a real like hierarchy, and there's a real core now that's in place now where you can, and you have the cap space, you can go be aggressive in trade or in free agency. And I feel happy for Ducks fans, man. Can I say this? Like somebody pointed this out. I didn't know how bad it was, but I think Greg Beecham made a tweet where he's like, it's only been 13 games, but people don't understand what this means to long-suffering Ducks fans. It's like this team was 31st in the NHL in goals over the past 5 seasons. The Ducks didn't even finish in the top half of league scoring since 2014-2015.
So it's been 10 years, 10 plus years essentially.
A decade of not even finishing in the top half of league scoring. And for me, it's like I am super high on this team because there's so much potential here too, regardless of how they finish this year. And everything's established. There's assets to make a trade. Maybe for and once, maybe
potential coming to the system too, right? They also have Roger McQueen. Like they have a few other pieces that can come through the system. They can use those guys to make trades to kind of bolster their roster because like McQueen's the center, right? But if Carlson's your one and McTavish's your two, McQueen's kind of redundant, right? Maybe you move him into the wing, maybe you trade him for like I'm not gonna say an elite piece, but you get a really good piece back to help you somewhere else, right? Like maybe your defense, you want more of a shutdown guy because you have Zellweger, Minchikov, and like you have so many puck moving defensemen, right? Maybe you need a really elite shutdown guy, and you get that. You just have so many,
or maybe in free agency. Yeah, or maybe like what I think a move would be is maybe not at the but if you can like maybe at the deadline if Rasmus Anderson would stay, you can just trade for him and sign him, and that'd be a perfect fit for this team, right? I think like there's guys in free agency that would be available as well that I think like Alex Tuck would be a good fit. Granted, how much you pay him is a question, but there's a lot of good pieces that are available, I think, and they're in again with this hierarchy figured out to an extent. You can now be more aggressive in how you fill those remaining pieces. And so for me overall, I'm just high on the Ducks because I think they have the hierarchy figured out. You're finally seeing the prospect potential, and you're seeing a coach that is not forcing people into his system. He's playing to the strengths of his players. And there's an identity here, which I really like. It kind of reminds me of like, oh, sorry, I was just gonna say, it kind of reminds me of the early years. Granted, Joel Quenneville's a better coach than Lindy Ruff, but like that first year when Lindy Ruff got there, where the Stars just played fun and gun hockey to an extent, but you saw the best of Tyler Seguin, Jamie Benn, John Klingberg offensively. I think that's kind of what we're seeing here.
And I think you talked about it too, right? A good coach is one who kind of adapts to the players he has and doesn't try to conform the players to their system, right? Like you saw it because it's funny because we compared this to the Columbus team, and you can make a similar comparison coaching wise too, right? Like Dina Vason was a really good defensive coach in Minnesota, but when he got to Columbus, he realized, well, I have all these young forwards, like, and I have really shitty defensemen. Why don't I just play fun and gun and like just make use of what I have? And you saw how well that worked out for the Blue Jackets, right? And again, I think Quenneville's done the same thing where, you realize how many good young players you have, and so many of them are so good offensively. It's like, why don't you just kind of like break the chains and let them make their mistakes, but let them play their game? And you see how much like there's a drastic night and day difference between last year's Ducks and this year's Ducks. It's such a difference, and it just again, if you're even for a Ducks fan, it's just much more fun to watch. Even if you're losing games, I hate to say this, but I'd rather be losing. Even if they start to lose more games, I'd rather be losing games like this than losing games the way I lost them last year, too.
Exactly, yeah. And like I said, now, again, you can kind of aggressively start filling out your roster. Now, you'll probably have to earmark a certain amount of money to Cutter Gauthier. We probably want to extend him long term. But like I said, there's so many guys available that can just fill certain roles. Like maybe, like they're one of the few teams, them and another team we'll talk about, where you can just sign Panarin to like a 3-year deal, max out the AAV, and then just have him off the books coming in a couple years, and he creates a boost. Again, we talked about Alex Tuck. Like maybe a guy like Evander Kane can fill a role. Boone Jenner, Boone Jenner can obviously fill like a pretty good like sandpaper role on this team, even though he's a bit slower, but so probably more middle six. But I do think there's a lot of interesting pieces that they can target. And now again, when you seems like you have all this figured out, you can kind of go target specific pieces versus worrying about what do we have here? You know what I mean? So
also, this team doesn't have very many bad contracts either, right? The only one I think of that I don't really like is maybe like the Troy Terry one. That's the only one I don't necessarily like for the team.
I'm gonna push back on that. Troy Terry's so like what Troy Terry could do with no like under Cronin versus what, and he's still playing well now. I don't even think Troy Terry's a bad contract. Troy Terry's good.
I'm not necessarily. I mean, this year he started off really well, but like the past few years, he hasn't looked like super great. Like
yeah, but I mean, no one looked good on the Ducks.
I know, but it's like I don't know. I'm curious to see how well this holds up. Again, a lot of his points right now are from assists, and I think he's more of a goal scorer. So I'm kind of curious to see how that balances out. So like Terry's contract is fine, but like again, you do have to allocate money for. You already allocated the $9 million you have for Lacombe. You're probably at some point gonna have to, you already. I guess like.
But for them too, like the Strome Killorn contracts also come off the books, and Granlund comes off.
Trouba comes off as well. Gudas comes off as well. Like your Gudas and Trouba come off the books after the end of this year, and I think the Kreider, Killorn, Strome contracts all come off the books at the end of next year. And I think the Granlund one's the only one that kind of extends in the year after. But by that point, you've already paid. I would hope you've already paid Carlson.
I am so much higher on the Ducks than I was going into the season, because for me it was like, they could do well if Quenneville plus certain amount of guys hit their upside, but they're overperforming any expectations I had because like Carlson legit looks like a number one, like a real number one center. Gauthier looks like a real number one power forward, which I can't remember the last time we've seen one this young, this good. Because you look at guys like Slavkovsky and Lafreniere where they haven't developed that yet, but Gauthier is just full on. That's what he is. Again, McTavish is settling in great as a number two center. Like I am so high on this team. If I'm a Ducks fan, I'd be so excited about what this. And I already have Joel Quenneville. Joel Quenneville is my early front runner for Coach of the Year already. Not because of how good the Ducks are doing, but just like again, just a night and day difference and how he's transformed the performance of some of the individual players on this team.
Also, last point about the Ducks too, like if Carlson does look like your number one center and you have Dostal as your number one goalie, I think the only thing you have to figure out is Lacombe that true number one defenseman. That's the only thing you have to figure out. Mm-hmm. And if he doesn't work out, maybe Zellweger takes it, maybe like Minchnikov takes. You still have a few other options, right? But for the most part, you figured out like two of the three most important pieces of your team. And it's kind of a bonus that the Gautier's worked out the way he has because you traded basically almost a dead asset in like Drysdale for him.
Yeah,
like that trade went from that
trade. I'm a Flyers fan. I am so mad right now.
I mean that trade literally went from like just a win for Anaheim to like a win-win-win for Anaheim, right? Because like
what makes it worse is if I remember correctly, the argument for Gauthier wanted to leave because he wanted to break with the Flyers sooner, and because they said no, then they had to trade him because he wanted out. Who's a better young forward on the Flyers than Cutter Gauthier? Right now, nobody.
Well, there was a lot of issues that you like based on why you requested a trade out of Philly, right? Because I think one of them was was like the one you mentioned where he obviously wanted to break camp right away. And I've been noticing that a lot more with the college players. A lot of the guys want to break the team straight away. Like you saw with remember Isaac Howard with Tampa? Like he didn't end up like he wanted to break. He knew it wasn't going to get in there, and so then Tampa was forced to trade him to Edmonton, where he's Edmonton kind of has a need for cheap forwards because they're they paid a lot of their guys, like so much of their money's allocated to their top guys, right? I think with Gauthier specifically, I think it was that as well. I don't know if Philly's management kind of brushed them the wrong way too. There's just a lot of other factors that kind of played into it. So I think the fact that Anaheim not only got him, but like I don't want to say they traded basically nothing for him, but like based on how Drysdale looked, they basically traded nothing for him.
Yeah, like I mean they've won that trade. I'd take Gauthier over Drysdale like 10 times out of 10. So, all right, moving on here. What's the team one of the teams you're panicked about?
So that's for teams I'm panicked about. I'd probably go with the St. Louis Blues. That's probably one I'm quite like. I'm already kind of like spamming the panic on.
Okay.
So they're already like struggling. They already lost in their division, right? And they're struggling quite a bit. And with Montgomery, they're supposed to be a good defensive team, right? Because Montgomery is like more of a defensive coach. But if you look at their analytics, like they're 25th in expected goals against, 25th in high danger chances against, and unfortunately, their goalies, I think both Binghamton and Hofer, are 57th and 68th in goals saved above expected. Like everything defensive wise has probably gone wrong, right? Their defensemen aren't playing well. Their goalies aren't saving pretty much anything that's coming their way. Like I think, let me check how many goalies there are out of because I told you 57th and 68th, but let me check how many total goalies there are that played at least a game this year. I think there's 71 goalies. So they're 50. Sorry, let me pull this back up again. They're 57th and 68th out of 71 goalies. Like it's bad.
No, that's. Mm-hmm.
And they're having trouble figuring out. It's funny, they're having trouble figuring out their power play too, right? Their power play is 12th ranked, but they're doing this weird thing where they've just been moving guys on and off the power play. Like because I own Fowler, I know that Fowler and Falk have swapped spots. They've moved Snuggerud from power play 2, power play 1, then they moved them off. They've taken Kyrou off. They actually play both their power plays pretty evenly, which is, I think, quite unusual for a lot of teams. A lot of teams just send out their power play 1 for 60 to 70% of their power play. So it just feels like I don't want to say they don't know what they're doing, but just like they're having trouble figuring out what's working despite the fact that they are a top half team in a power play percentage.
They are in this weird trying shit stage, which for a team that had the continuity, like you thought the trying shit stage would have been last year, and then coming into this year they would have the continuity. But they're in like a weird, I will say there's a couple things. One I've noticed with this team, one, like they scratched Jordan Kyrou for no. I get, look, the defense isn't like good, but we don't have him there for his defense. Let's just be real. Like
Like
his
you pay
advantage
him
is
to be
his
a good offensive forward. Like that's what you pay him for.
his advantage is his speed and his playmaking. Right now, there's a real lack when Kyrou's especially being scratched. There's a real lack of playmaking on this team outside of Robert Thomas. And Robert Thomas, when he was hurt for a bit, you really noticed it. There's not a lot of guys who can like create for others on this team. And defensively, they have that issue too. There's not a lot of playmaking on the defensive side, and there's not a lot of production. Like there's not a lot of production on the defensive side as well. So right now, you're having this issue where they are struggling defensively. Some of it is like some of their young guys, like Logan Mayu's been an absolute zero defensively. Philip Broberg hasn't been great defensively. Those guys are younger, so you kind of expect it. The issue is when they're not great defensively. If you notice one thing with a Jim Montgomery team is on moments where they're not great defensively, they usually have good goaltending to bail them out. And right now, the problem with Binnington and Hofer is that they're both very streaky goalies. Like when Binnington's on, he's about as good as any goalie in the league. But when he's off, he's as bad as any goal in the league. And right now he is on a bad spell. And it's not just the defense. Like he's playing badly. And right now you have this issue where
Bennington either plays like Andre Vasilevsky or he plays like Stuart Skinner. And there's like no in between. Like you either get the absolute, like you saw at the Four Nations tournament where he was just absolutely like electric for Team Canada, right? You saw that part of him. And then you'll see other seasons where he can't even have a 900 save percentage. Yeah. Like you've seen the best and worst of him essentially. And you never know which one you're going to get.
I mean, even if you go through his career, right? Like 927 the year they won the cup, 912 save percentage.
Even that was like 910. That was like 30 games, I think. Yeah. That 920,
910, 901, 894, 913, 900. Like, okay, I'll say this about Jordan Binnington. This is my hot take. I don't think anyone's lived off one Stanley Cup run more than him. And two, he's what people think Marc-Andre Fleury was before he got to Vegas.
Man, I almost think it's like even. I almost want to say it's almost even.
It's worse. It's worse for sure.
It's worse because like Fleury at least
like there's not been any year. Yeah, but my point is like he's been really inconsistent. But the peak stretches are so good that you forget how inconsistent he is normally. And when you look at like his season save percentages year to year, it kind of indicates that, right? He's off and on. He's basically like a Katy Perry song. And
hot and cold.
It's one of those things where like. Again, when your defense is struggling, you kind of at least want steady goaltending, and right now they don't have that. And without Thomas, if Kyrou's being scratched and Thomas is hurt, like there's just a real lack of playmaking on this team. And the defense, there's not a ton of playmaking right now either. So it's like, where are you getting this playmaking from offensively? The defense is struggling, and the goaltending right now is in a slump. It's like it's a bad spot to be in to start. And the issue this year with the division is with the rise of Utah, with Nashville's not great, but they're not as dog shit as they were last year. Again, regression to the mean. Like with certain teams rising, your margin for error when you start bad just becomes a lot smaller, right? And in the Central especially, if you fall right now, they have one more game on Dallas, but they're 5 points behind. When you start to fall further and further, it becomes really tricky to catch up, especially in a division that's this good and again will be very competitive going forward.
Well, even then, like I think they're a game behind now. They're a game behind Nashville, but even though they win that one game, they're still technically tied for last, right? So, and they're already so far, like they're already like 5 points off, like you said, 5 points off, Colorado. Well, they're a game ahead of Colorado. They're already 5 points off, like or about. Mm-hmm. There will be 5 or 6 points off essentially, like when that happens.
Because right? That's why they also, I think, brought. I know Thomas was hurt, but they also brought in Dvorsky just to see if he could provide a spark at center. Like the issue is too, they have a lot of physical guys, really good power forwards, but they're not creators. They're more finishers and physical guys like Jimmy Snuggerud, Dylan Holloway, Jake Neighbors all have that profile. And again, a guy like Robert Thomas works perfectly with those guys, right? But none of those guys are creators on their own. And Pavel Buchnevich has been dog shit this year, and he was supposed to be that like secondary playmaker to
Well,
catalyze one of the lines besides Thomas.
He's been dog shit for a few years, though. I think that's.
But he's been worse than he was last year, and I think like that fall off makes a difference.
He was still pretty dog shit last year. Is my point.
But like again, he's worse this year, and then when you combine it with again, this isn't a team that's going to generate a lot of scoring and production from the defensive end. It's just a real problem offensively. So while they are struggling defensively, I worry more about weirdly their offense going forward than I do the defensive side.
Well, I think you're right? Because if Thomas is hurt, they don't have any sort of playmaking up front. So that's kind of their big issue. And Thomas is like a bit, he is a little bit injury prone at times. Like he is like, the ankles, like he does get hurt a bit more than you'd like. So if he's hurt, like, and they're literally throwing Dalibor Dvorsky kind of in the lineup, but just out of desperation. Like it's just not a recipe for success. Like you don't want to elevate your young guys out of necessity. Right, you rather elevate.
When you watch a Blues game, you realize how valuable Thomas is, just because, again, of how little playmaking they have around the roster. Whereas, like again, compared to a team like Utah, where so many guys can create on that team, it's just like it's not a comparison, right? All right. Moving on to the team again, another team I'm high on. Speaking of Utah, we'll just transition right into them. We were high on the Mammoth because we said we wanted to be ahead of it when they got good. Like we thought they might be a year away, but we wanted to get ahead of it. To me, to an extent, they've arrived. Like this is what we thought the high end of this team would be. And again, if you look at the numbers, they're different from the Ducks in that the advanced numbers are good. They're 11th in expected goals for. They are 10th in expected goals against, which is really good for a 5-on-5 team. They're basically like top 10 in both, and they kind of were that last year to an extent. They're, if you look at their power play numbers, the power play could use a little bit of work. They're 21st, but I think that'll
kill could use some work, right? Because they're 21st in both. But I think that will improve over time, right? Because they have enough talent on that power play that I feel like it will right itself at a certain point. The penalty kill, I'm a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm a little bit worried about that, but I mean, as long as you're not like bottom of the league penalty kill, I think you're fine. Like 21st isn't great, but it's not the end of the world. And again, like they're 16th in high danger chances for and 15th in high danger chances again. So they're kind of a middle of the pack team in that. So they aren't doing anything horrifically wrong, but they're also just not doing anything crazy, like good, like chance wise, right? So they're fine. And when they have so much young talent that the talent can kind of offset like some of the amount of chances they have, right? Like at a certain point, you don't have to be a team that's top 10 in chance generation if you have talented enough guys that can bury those like few chances you do get.
And Nick Schmaltz hot streak aside, because Nick Schmaltz will have his hot streaks. He's just doing it early in the year this year for some reason. Like the other guys are where we kind of thought they would be post-sleep. Like Clayton Keller's point per game, Dylan Guenther is 0.93 points per game. Sergachev is up to around 0.79, and Cooley's up to 0.86. Now Cooley's riding an insane shooting percentage, but again, I think we kind of expected these guys would take leaps in their point production. And we're kind of seeing that here to an extent. And this is a team with a very good offensive core. When you're talking about, again, Keller, Guenther, Cooley, they each have one defensive playmaker on each of their lines, where they have Sergachev on one, Dursey on the other, and normally again Nate Schmidt on another one to balance out their pairings. It's a team that works well. It's a team that has speed. It has shooting. It has a bit of physicality. Everything on this team, like especially the top 6, work really well. And we talked about this is a team with a ton of assets and cap space that can make a move for maybe like a Rasmus Anderson at the deadline, maybe a goaltender at the deadline if like they're not confident in the Vejmelka Vanacek pairing going forward. They're a team that again still has like guys that can hit maybe greater heights on the roster right now. Like again, maybe Cooley, Guenther, or Keller even hit a gear that we're not aware of. Maybe they can trade for a second line center. Like I'd love to see Kadri here because I feel like Barrett Hayton's not an ideal offensive second line center, but a guy like Kadri, for example, would be just
they have the Schmaltz, Keller, Hayton as their line one, and I like. It's funny because Hayton works really well with Schmaltz and Keller. Like if you watch it,
but he's not good on his own, right? Yeah,
that's the problem. And his numbers are terrible. Yeah. Like I think he has like 2 or 4 points right now. Like
He's just
I never
never been
understood.
good offensively, but he's a good flow guy. It's weird.
Yeah,
I've
he
never
works. Funny enough, he works well
like
with
his
Schmaltz and
advanced numbers
Calhoun.
with certain guys are really good, but he's never good statistically. It's just like I don't know how to explain it, but I think they're a team that could maybe go for a guy like a Kadri, like if he's available, or like if a team like that is dangling a center. This is a team that has the assets. They have all their picks. They're a team
They
that
can
can make
trade
that
either
move.
Denoyer or Tej Iginla for. It's funny they could actually send Iginla to Calgary for catch.
I
How
don't.
funny would that be?
That feels like such a low like value proposition. And the other thing too is
Really?
like
I mean,
this is with
you throw a
Vejmelka
first
and
pick in, I
Vanich.
think that would work. I feel like that would work.
I think
Like,
that's an
just throw a first.
overpay.
Even
I think
then,
that's an
again, that's my
overpay.
point though. You have the assets to get it done, right?
The thing with two is Vejmelka and Vanacek haven't even played that well this year so far, and like Vejmelka's shown you like last year, despite basically being forced to play almost every game of the year
Every
for the
single game,
Mammoth,
yeah.
like he was still pretty solid last year. So I think there's still even more potential because if the goaltending gets better, even if the shooting percentages go down, this team can still be pretty good. And I really think this is a team that, again, if they get enough points early in the season, like they're definitely lock for 3 or 4 in a Central Division, especially with the slow starts by Minnesota and St. Louis.
I was gonna say it looks like they're doing the same thing with Vejmelka. He's played in all but 3 games this year. It seems like so. Seems like Utah's back to the playing him at every single night.
That's
thing,
the
but
one upgrade I would like to see them make. I just don't know it's the same problem with Edmonton where I don't know who's available in a trade, really. Like, there's just not a lot of goalies unless you're taking on, like, a risky one kind of thing. So I just don't
yeah,
know what the answer is.
there's not a lot of good goalies on the market realistically. Like it's just goal again because the goalies are such a like. There's only 64 like basically the 64 60 we'll say 62 because we'll take out the 2 guys on your team, but there's only 62 other guys that are available you can make a move for, and a lot of those 62 guys are untouchable, right? So there's just not a lot of options available goalie wise. But I mean, if there is an option, they do have the pieces to get it done. That's the one thing I think you're confident
The
about.
only
Like,
thing I
they
can
have
think
the
of
pieces
is,
to get it
like,
done.
if Detroit falls apart, maybe, again, Talbot's an option. I don't know. It's just, yeah, it's hard. Like, maybe if the Kraken go full rebuild and trade Decord, hopefully, maybe, but like that's unlikely. The interesting one would be Sorokin. Like, could you do enough? Although Sorokin's off to a bad start, but like, could you do enough to pry him away
They have
from
the
the
assets.
Isles?
They
And
have
would
the
he want to
assets. I
go
think.
there? But like, so yeah, when you combine like the offensive talent, again, taking the leap we thought they would, plus again the goaltending and not even playing that well, and the way the team's structured, and again the war chest of assets they have to get something done. I'm really high on this team. I think next year is when they take that real leap to contention. But this year, I think they're a solid, and we thought they would be a solid wildcard team, and they kind of seem to be heading to that path right now.
Yeah, I think I think why we think they'll take another step next year is again like if they make a move for their goaltending that improves. Their defensemen are pretty solid. It's funny because we didn't even mention it. Did we even mention Dursey as one of their puck moving defensemen? We didn't even mention his name. I think when we were talking about it.
Yeah,
But they have so many good puck moving defensemen. And then again, if we think that Gunther Cooley hit another gear, then like this team really
there's
will
just
take a leap.
easy
Even if they
ways
don't,
to improve this team too. Not easy, but like there's targetable
there's
ways to
paths.
improve this
There's
team.
paths. There's
Yeah,
reasonable
there's
paths
right.
for
It's
this
not
team
like,
to.
oh crap, we need a number one franchise center. Oh crap, we need like a guy that can pop 30. It's like, well, no, you have those guys. It's just
You have a
we
guy that
need
can
a
pop
second
30.
line center.
Yeah, you have a
Yeah.
guy on his way to you have a guy on his way to becoming a number one center. You already have a number one
Yeah.
winger in Keller. You have Schmaltz who does the weird.
You have
I'm
Gunther,
hot
who's
for win.
probably gonna be one. Yeah.
Yeah, like you have so many
Yes.
like, and you also have Denoyer and like Iginla coming to the system too. Where even if some of those guys don't work out, it's like cool. Well, we have a few other guys that either we can use them as trade bait, or if they're good enough to play for us, like hey, like just even more young forward talent, right? Like this team just feels like stacked forward wise. Like they have so many like
Yeah.
good players there.
There's also guys like too that you can move. Like maybe I think Simashev has potential, but if you want to move him, you can. Danielle Boot's another one who's like again preseason showed a lot of promise. There's interesting guys. Like this team's a lot younger than you'd think too. Like I said, like Sergachev's 27, but like Paterka's 24, Cooley's 21. Gunther's older than Cooley, which is crazy to me. Like Keller's probably their oldest core player. He's 27. So it's like, yeah, there's a lot there's a lot of ways to go here for this team. So which makes their start already promising as well. And also, unlike when they were in Arizona, um, you know, like they have an owner who's willing to invest in this team. Like there was this article today that came out where I think it was the GM was talking about how the equipment they have for their computers and their setups are more expensive than like anything they had while they were in Arizona. And like one thing
And
I've noticed with
all the comments on Reddit was just like fuck Alex Murillo, or like how did Bettman let this guy own a team for this
one
long?
thing I'll say about Ryan Smith, he's like for both Utah teams, he's been a really good owner, and like that's all you can ask for is your owner to invest in the infrastructure of the team and get out of the way, and he does both.
Yeah, basically for a good sports owner, again, yeah, invest, throw money at throw a ton of money, and don't fucking interfere with the day to day operations. Like I hate to say it, if you look at Buffalo, why Buffalo was so shit for so long is that while their owner was willing to throw money, he kept trying to.
We're so shit for so long.
Well, I mean, they look a little bit better this year. I'll give them that. I think it's at least a step in the right direction. And it seems like their owners aren't meddling in shit again like usual. Apparently, the Pagulas need to learn that. Again, it's funny because the Pagulas own the Bills and the Bills are well run, but then the fucking Sabres are run to the shit. Like it doesn't make sense to me if you get what I mean. Like one's so well run and the other one's so shit.
Yeah, like I don't evaluate owners on bad teams if like they spend money and they're generally out of the day to day. That means you're just having bad luck with GMs, and sometimes you really don't know with GMs, right? Like I remember people thought Paul Fenton, who was the assistant GM to David Poile in Nashville, was like a slam dunk hire. He wasn't. And then like Bill Zito, who like anyone could have had realistically, but Florida just has not missed since he got there. So it's like sometimes you never know. But all you can ask is the owner invest in the infrastructure, spend near the cap, and kind of just not meddle, right? And kind of just trust the GM's vision. And yeah, they've done that. So again, I really like this team going forward. It's frustrating because again, they're in the division. They just make the Central more competitive. But what can you do?
Yeah, you can't do much about that. I think again, like I think as a Leafs fan who's in another really because I think the Leafs and the Stars are probably the two most competitive divisions, right? Like anytime you're in one of those divisions and you just have a lot of teams that are kind of clumping around there, it's just always gonna be tough, right?
Mm-hmm. All right, what's your next team you're panicked on?
The next team I'm kind of panicked about is actually the Ottawa Senators. So hear me out.
Interesting. Okay.
So
I'll hear you out.
It's not I wouldn't say it's like a sound the alarm bells, we're taking on water and our ship is like sinking situation, but it's like, oh no, it's more of a, oh no, we have a couple of holes in our hull and we have the pumps to pump the water out, but this might this hole might get bigger over time kind of thing, and then our pumps are going to fail kind of situation. So currently they're tied for sixth in their division, which is a little bit a lot lower than where I had them, because I did think that some of the teams
tied with Buffalo.
Well, and they're tied with Buffalo, funny enough, who we were kind of out on. So as a team, like analytic wise, it's weird because they have a bunch of decent offensive players, but they're 29th in expected goals for and 25th in high danger chances for, which I find kind of interesting.
You know what's scary?
It's actually
29th in expected for, 8th in goals for, which means like somehow they're going to regress to the mean, which is kind of frightening.
And that's a scary part too. And it's funny because their defense is actually really good. They're 6th in expected goals against and 5th in high danger chances against. Now the problem with that and why they're struggling as a whole is Allmark is the worst goalie in the league in terms of goals saved expected, and I think Maryland is 5th worst. So this is even worse than the St. Louis situation because at least in the St. Louis situation, like you could argue their defense isn't giving them isn't helping them very much. It's worse here because Ottawa's defense is actually helping Allmark and Maryland quite a bit, but they're literally just letting it feels like
the only problem with their defense is I feel like they're getting murdered in the non-Sanderson minutes, which is a problem. Like the non-Sanderson minutes have been a real problem for them to fill. And the other thing too is, I feel like last year Travis Green kind of led us off the scent in a way where if you look at them last year was like the best defensive season they've ever had, like Travis Green's ever had for a team. And if I remember correctly, like they only like really finished, like my worry about this team is that it's not a big worry, but it's the worry of like, can you get by in the non-Sanderson minutes, both from a playmaking standpoint and from a defensive standpoint? And they're not playing Jordan Spence for some reason. So I am kind of curious to see how they do that, especially because usually the hallmark is to fall on good goaltending in those situations. But right now, Allmark and Merilainen have not been off to good starts. So I don't know what the answer is there. And now Brady
I,
Tkachuk's hurt too, which is another
yeah.
obviously, which is another problem, right?
Also, it feels weird too because if you look at their forward lines without Brady Tkachuk, like their best forwards are essentially Stützle and Batherson, and like Cousins has been kind of like very like hit like in his past few years in NHL, he's kind of been hit or miss offensively. Like he looked a little bit better this year, but like there have been times where you're like, this guy has so many opportunities. Like how has he not done anything? And like their second line is basically like an aging David Perron and Ridley Gregg, who's playing like a lot further up the lineup than he should, and like Giroux's aging as well. Like Pinto's kind of what he is. Like there's not a lot of offensive talent, which justifies why they're playing like so well above their analytics, like offense wise. Like
Well, I
again,
mean,
like
one, they're shooting. Certain guys are shooting an insanely high percentage, but two, like they're young. Like some of their guys are playing. Cousins is playing well for a second line, like for what a second line center should be. Like Shabbat is again like the Sanderson's been playing
the problem
insane.
is though that's gonna fall off though because if you're shooting at such astronomical numbers, it's gonna regress to the mean. And the problem is like you don't also have like it's funny because Brady Tkachuk wasn't even that good offensively last year either. It's like the question is when he comes back, it's like which version of him do you get? Do you get the guy that's closer to 60, 70 points, or do you get the guy that's closer to 50 points? So there's also
I'll
a
just
question
say
mark there.
there are things. The only thing I'm not overly worried. Okay, there are things I'm worried and not worried about this team. One, I do like the offensive spine. I think like the Stützle, Cousins, Pinto, like as your three centers is great. I think that's like that's something you can build around, and then you can kind of adjust the wingers as you go because normally sometimes they have Batherson on the third line. I think now he's on the first line while Tkachuk's been out, and they've been kind of battling through. They're trying to figure out where things go. But that's like while you're mixing stuff around, it's okay to mix stuff up on the wings versus and leaving your centers intact and figuring that out as you go. Again, I think the Sanderson Zub pairing's been really good. The issue is like again that Shabbat Jensen line is a bit of a problem, especially with Nick Jensen. And right now, like again, they're not playing Spence, and I think it's like Matt and Paolo and Clevin, and that's just like getting lit up. And I don't know. I don't know how you again when your goaltending's not playing well. I don't know how you solve that part. So, well, I'm
Also, the
not
other part
worried
is like
about
at this
like
point, like you traded for Spence. Like, why are you not playing him? Like, what was like again? What was the point of trading for the guy if you're just gonna sit him and just like healthy scratch him, right? And I remember like,
I
and
don't
it's
know.
not to say Spence is a bad player because I remember a lot of Kings fans were pissed when they traded him because they were like, why are we giving up a good right-handed D-men are hard to come by? Why are we giving up a right-handed D-man who's like a pretty solid asset and in limited minutes played really well? Like, why are we trading this kind of guy away? So to me, just there's a couple of moves that Ottawa made just didn't make sense. Like, why would you trade for him if you're not going to play him? And then, like, obviously with the injuries, they've been forced to play guys further up the lineup. And again, their offense has been doing great given the analytics, but it's going to regress. I'm a little bit worried about that. And like, Allmark and like Maryline, and I would hope they regress back to the mean. But again, you don't know
The
that
only
if that
yeah,
will
that's
happen.
like that's why it's tough for me. Like I'm mixed on this. I think their offense will regress a bit, yes, but they still have good offensive talent. And I don't think Allmark and Maryline will be this bad this year. The only issue I think you have is how do you patch up the bottom four and how far back do you fall behind before it becomes a problem in this division? Because, like I said, there are a lot of competitive teams, and like their teams, not only are there the Tampa, Toronto, Florida from last year. Montreal started off hot. Detroit started off hot, and those two teams are looking to make the playoffs, right? So it's like the first, and Buffalo too. Buffalo is looking to make the playoffs as well. There's no like real rebuilding team in this division. So when you start bad, it creates a lot more legwork for you, and that's not even including like the other division where the Metro, where again, no teams got off to a horrible start yet. Like surrounding. So it's like there are more teams you have. The further back you fall, there's just more teams you have to jump. It's a numbers game, right?
And I was going to even say, even a team like Boston, who we thought was the one rebuilding team in this division, even they've at least looked good to start. And it's like, they've given themselves more room for error because of their good start too, right?
Yeah.
And if
Like,
you're Ottawa,
do I think Boston? Do I think Boston will be a playoff team? No, but they're going to be annoying. They're not going to just like last year where you could score 2 goals on them and be fine. I don't think that's the case this year, which is a big step up for Boston, for the record. Like And even some of the other teams, like the Islanders, like say this about the Isles. Do I think they're going to be a playoff team? Absolutely not. But they're not going to be a walkover. They're going to make you work. And they've made everybody work for wins this year. So it's going to be interesting. Yeah, it's just going to be. And even the Flyers with Rick Tocchet's system will make you work for your wins this year. So while I'm not like overall worried about
say, even with the Flyers, like Rick Tocchet, even though they're not like maximizing their young players, they're maximizing like their chances of winning, right, with the system they play, right? Like realistically with the Flyers, they have so many younger players. They should be trying to develop the young guys, but they've gone for the more stupid just try to win route, which isn't good for the development of the young players. But they're winning, and that's going to cause you more problems.
Their win probability is higher for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're going to compete, and they're going to be another team that's going to be tough to compete with.
Yeah. So like the Senators are a tough one for me because again I don't have the alarm going, but it is kind of like I have them in the corner of my eye ready to like hit it if this goaltending stretch continues for a lot longer because I don't know how much you can sustain just on really good offense and Jake Sanderson when all these other teams around you and like I don't know how much you can sustain on one pairing when your defense is when your goaltending is playing bad. Like you see what Columbus can do when their defense isn't great but Jack Greaves is playing well. Again, we talked about the Ducks where they're giving up a lot of chances, but Dostal is playing well. You can't get away with like bad defensive pairings when your goaltending is playing well. You just can't.
Yeah.
All right. The last team I'm high on. This one's kind of obvious, and I don't know. I looked back on it and don't even know why I put them here. But Colorado. Look, let's just be real. Like we thought Colorado
fucking juggernaut. Like this is a juggernaut.
We thought Colorado would be good because we thought they'd finish first in the division because they have more continuity than like the teams below them. Again, Utah was incorporating new players. The Jets lost Ehlers and they were going to regress. And Dallas Stars incorporated a whole new coaching staff, right? That's obviously going to take, and we see the difference, what difference coaching makes with Anaheim, for example. So we thought like they would jump out, but I didn't think it would be like this. Like they're a lot. Like this is without Mackenzie Blackwood.
Yeah, they're just steamrolling.
This is without Mackenzie Blackwood. Like Mackenzie Blackwood's played one game this year. Scott Wedgwood has played 12, and like Scott Wedgwood hasn't played
one regular season. They've had one loss in regulation so far. Like that's like how crazy.
And like been. Scott Wedgwood hasn't played amazing. It's not like he's the reason they're winning these games. Their offense has been absurd. One, I'll say this: it finally feels like the Colorado strength has always been through the wings, where you look at like again Colton, Nichushkin, Lehkonen, Natchez, Landeskog, and they signed Olofsson, who's been playing insane this year. Like they have so much wing talent. The issue was always like the number 2 center, the number 3 center, and has Brock Nelson been has Brock Nelson been amazing? No. Has he been just enough to like understand his role where he just needs to set up the wings and play his role? Yes. And that's all this team needed. Just a steadying force at 2C. And they have that with Nelson. They have McKinnon and Natchez on the first line. Jack Drury is a good like checking line 3 center. And if I'm not mistaken, they don't even have Logan O'Connor still out, who played really well for them in the playoffs. Like this team's gonna get better. And again, when you look at the way this team plays, where their first line will just blitz you with speed, their second line is a little bit more physical and will kind of they're kind of play a more control game. And then they have their 2 checking lines and physicality all throughout the wings in like guys like Nichushkin, guys like Landeskog, etc. Like it is a nightmare to match up against. The only weakness on this team I think you can point to is like outside of while they have scaled back on minutes for Makar and Natchez a little bit. I think they're playing like a minute less-ish per game, which is kind of frightening. Makar and Taves are playing a ton of minutes, and I think where you can take advantage of this team sometimes is in the Burns, Manson, Malinsky, Sokolov, or Solovov pairings, but it's just so hard to get through to them. And if Blackwood plays like he did last year, it's going to be even more difficult. I think this team is probably the best team in the West right now. And I just think that, like, I just don't know how again, with the steadying force they have at like, even though they're gonna have issues probably with the bottom two pairings. If Gerard comes back and can at least fill out the third pair to a competent level, and if O'Connor comes back to the fourth line and can play like he did last year in the playoffs, man, it's gonna be really hard for teams to beat them.
Well, I think the scary thing with this Avalanche team too is the only real issue apart from the defense is their power play. But like with so much talent on their power play, that's just
Yeah, like that'll be fine, point. Right?
Like they're 23rd in power play percentage, and then they have the second best penalty kill in the league. I think we talked about their offense, like 6th in goals for, 3rd in expected goals for, 2nd in high danger chances for, 1st in shots on goal, and then defense wise, like even though like they have a couple of weak-ish defensive pairings, they're still 7th in expected goals against and 4th in high danger chances against. So they're still doing a good enough job limiting like stuff in front of them to the point where Wedgwood, despite him not being like an elite goalie, like he's played well enough to keep them afloat.
It's fine.
And not only that, they're getting their best goal. They're getting one of the better goalies in the league back, and they've only had one loss in the regular season,
if you watch them, like the way they play puts so much pressure on a defense, like the way they break, especially that McKinnon, Makar, Natchez, when they break zone, they create so much chaos and there's so much gravity you have to assign to Makar that it's tough to really defend them. It's weird. Like Dallas is one of the only teams that can do it because they have Heiskanen and they have Esselindel. They have and they have defensive forwards that can do that. And like Florida, I think is another one when healthy that could do it. But there's very few teams that can defend the way this team plays. And I think, especially if you're talking about an 82-game season, it's really hard to prepare for this team, say, coming on a back-to-back or something like that. And it's just, I think they can mitigate. I think their move at the deadline should be to get a second pairing defenseman. Again, even if it's just Rasmus Anderson for a rental, I think you try for it, like as an example. Just somebody who can provide some safety or some security to that second line. Because I think this is one of those years I think you kind of do or should go in for a cup a little bit. Last year was the bit of a step back. This year I think you can go because this team just looks ready to go.
Well, also, I was going to say, too, if you look at their forward depth, it's kind of criminal, the fact that they can play guys like
their Olsen, wings are absurd.
Like, their wings all the way down through the lineup are just, crazy. Even a Gavin Brindley and, Parker Kelly in your fourth line feels, way more qualified than, other teams' fourth line, right? Even those guys.
Landeskog on your third line, power play 2 is just ridiculous. Look, that is just an absurd amount of riches.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, if they can get one more defenseman for their second defensive pairing, that will just pretty much solve everything. And if they even want, I don't know if they have the cap for it. If they can even get a second one, that would just completely, it would solidify things to the point where you can move Samuel Girard down to the third pair, and Samuel Girard's way overqualified to be a third pairing defenseman at that point. And at that point, there's really nothing in your lineup I can poke a hole at.
Well, if you could get a second pair of defensemen, pair him with Burns, and kind of have a defensive rock there a little bit. Manson's good, but I think you maybe want something a bit, or even what you could do is if you could move Burns down to the third pair as a playmaking defenseman with somebody else, and then pair someone with Manson that's a bit more a more well-rounded guy. Yeah, exactly. It's just the only concern I have is alleviating the minutes through the season on Makar because he does play so many. And you notice it a bit in the Dallas. You want to keep him fresh
for the playoffs, right? Because your main goal is to win the cup, and you need to keep him fresh for the playoffs. Because you don't. Again, I hate to say this with Bednar. One of the things he does do, which I like. I mean, it's it's good, good for his team, but it's not necessarily good for the whole year. Is that he does play his top guys significant minutes, right? And it's great for winning in the regular season, but you don't want to. You do have concerns about those guys. I'm not going to say burn out, but they are going to tire, and you don't want them to tire towards playoff time.
I mean, honestly, I can't speak to this, and Makar will obviously never admit it, but he did that game 5-6-7 against Dallas. He did look a bit tired, and Dallas. And the thing is, because it's not like Dallas was lightening up on him. Dallas still gave him the gravity. Dallas still gave him the gravity of respecting, his ability. So they were still marking him the same way, and you kind of noticed that he wasn't at that same level that he normally is, right? And if you look at defenseman minutes in the league right now, so Quinn Hughes is 1 at 26 minutes, around 26:46. Werenski's 2 at 26.08. Sanheim's 3, which is weird. But and then Makar's 4th. He's 25.37, right? So
Hey man, it's Rick talking. We're talking about just play your best. He is Philly's best defenseman, right? So I'm not surprised Talkett just throws him out there for all situations.
but overall, like to me, this feels like the best team. Like this is the, and I know what you're gonna say. Like, hey, like to beat the you got to beat Edmonton. But like to me, just this team just, especially without Blackwood when he comes back, like this team just feels like they're the best team in the West right now.
Well, he's already back too, so it's like like he is back at this point. So it's like this team has everything but that second pairing defenseman. Like if they get the trade for that, this feels kind of over. Like let me just pull up their cap situation because I am kind of curious what it would take to kind of facilitate that move.
I mean,
like,
you could just get a guy as a rental and then figure the rest out later. Also, everybody has cap space now.
Well, they have 1.1. I guess like they have 1.2 million in cap space, but I guess in terms of deadline cap space, it's around 4.6 mil for the deadline. Yeah, so you could probably just get Calgary to retain on Anderson or somebody, or you get a good defenseman to get the team to retain, and you can probably just acquire them, throw a few picks or something that way, and then it'll work out.
All right, and what's the last team you got for your panic?
So the last team I'm gonna say I'm basically panicking on is it is the Minnesota Wild, and part of that problem
they ain't mild no more. They ain't mild.
Well, part of the problem with that is that, again, I think we talk about this. Like when you're in one of the toughest divisions in the league, your margin for error is a lot more slim, right? You can't afford to start behind the 8 ball. And for them, I think they're currently 6th in the division. Like they're barely above the Predators, who we knew would be better, but are still struggling. And the Blues, who we didn't expect to struggle to this certainty. But with the Wild, there's a few things that are kind of working against them, right? Their identity as a team kind of feels weird because they don't dominate offensive wise. They don't dominate defensive wise.
They definitely do not dominate offensively. They definitely do not.
They're 21st in expected goals for, and they're actually 32nd in expected goals against at 5-on-5, which is, it's funny because for a team that with the kind of
Brock Faber's been horrible. Brock Faber's been horrible. So there's a couple things with the Wild I've noticed watching a couple games. One, we knew the offense wasn't going to be good. Let's just be real. This is a team that I feel like I don't say they misuse what they do have, but while Joel Eriksson Ek is a good stabilizing force offensively, good stabilizing force as a two-way guy, he's not as good offensively as Marco Rossi is. And they, for some reason, are determined to play Marco Rossi in lower deployment, which I don't understand. Because say what you want about him, he is a better playmaker than Joel Eriksson
Ek. And they refuse to play him on power play 1. They always play Eriksson Ek on power play 1, which I never kind of understood. I don't know if you've watched. I haven't watched many Wild games, but from the ones I have seen when they're on the power play, it just feels like they just shove Eriksson Ek in front of the net, basically, right? Because it doesn't feel like.
It doesn't make sense, and it's Rossi, as for all his flaws, he's not a great he's not great hands, he's not a great shooter. He's a decent playmaker, and he is someone that could work off the Kaprizov, Boldy, Rossi minutes last year when Joel Eriksson Ek was hurt were really good. And right now there's a lack of offense on this team, and you kind of notice it because there's guys like Vladimir Tarasenko. Well, it's Zuccarello's out. There shouldn't be a death knell offensively, but it kind of feels that way because right now they're shoving Marcus Johansson, who's been pretty good. I think 13 points in 15 games. And Tarasenko, who's been actually okay on the power play for them. The funny thing is their offense should be worse. They're riding an insane power play heater right now. But overall...
Fourth in power play percentage.
Yeah. Overall, the issue offensive is what we talked about when they signed Kaprizov. Is they needed to get their Kaprizov signing done because they have so little around him. And outside of Kaprizov, Boldy, and basically whoever comes with them, because they're basically, those two drive the line, there's a real lack of line drive behind them. And the problem is it's not through the centers outside of Rossi, who's now playing on the second line with, I believe, Tarasenko and Johansson. So it's they're not even deploying him with guys they should be. So it's a real issue. It's a real mismatch there between, one, not deploying the guys properly, and two, there's just a lack of offensive talent offensively. And the problem is They don't have the defense. Sorry, they don't have the offensive talent on the back end to make up for it. Their offensive talent outside of Zeev Buyum defensively is non-existent. This isn't a team that has like. This is a team that has, you know, a Makar, that has a Werenski, that has a Hughes. Hell, this is a team that has a Dougie Hamilton and a Luke Hughes that can like make up for if your offense is cold. They have nothing. It's Zeev Buyum and nothing off like from the defensive side offensively. That's it.
And even with Zeev Buyum, right? He's a rookie, and he's kind of like you've seen at times he's like struggled a little bit. Like again, it's again part of the whole young defenseman trying to adapt to the league, right? He struggled a bit, and it's got to the point where I don't know why they've moved him off power play one, because apparently, if you're Minnesota and you've been struggling to find a power play quarterback, I feel like you just let Buyum just struggle through it. Because let's be real, you've tried Jared Spurgeon and Brock Faber for years and it hasn't worked out. Why do you think trying them for the 500th time will work? Right? Did you kind of get where I'm going with that? Like, it just doesn't make any sense. If it's like you've tried them.
It's tough too. It's tough too because Faber's been horrible defensively to start the year. That's like an underlying secret no one wants to talk about. Spurgeon's been okay.
Faber's not good offensive. Faber's not super good offensively, so he needs to be good defensively. And if he's not good defensively, then what is he good for?
Yeah. And like, so the problem is where they normally have a rock solid defense where the defensive forwards are enough. Plus, like, again, you have Faber, you normally have Brodin, you have Spurgeon. Buyum hasn't, like, admittedly, has not been good defensively, even in sheltered minutes. But you thought the trade-off of putting him in for offense might counteract that. It hasn't yet, outside of when he was on the power play. And then, like I said, Faber off to a rocky start defensively. Spurgeon and Brodin have been okay, but obviously Spurgeon's like a bit older. He's not the same as he was even like 2 years ago. It's creating issues on the defensive end. And when you don't have that offense that can sustain right now, and they don't, the defensive part is being a lot more exposed than it normally is. And this is a team that, again, can't afford to have a slow start, because as much as Zuccarello will help them both on the power play as a net presence and both and one of the wing slots, he's not a savior of a team that's going to magically come in and like everything will be okay like this. This team needs a lot more offensively, with, again, especially when you consider the lack of production they're getting from the defensive side offensively. And I am worried about where this team ends up, because it definitely feels like I thought this team would be improved because I thought maybe they would hit the ground running with Buyum, but if that's not the case, and I don't know what you do. I think you just kind of have to eat this year.
Yeah, you have to eat this year, and even with their goaltending too, right? Like Gustafson's just kind of been average, right? Like, and I don't want to say you don't need him to be elite, but you need him to be a lot better than just average, because their defense, defense isn't bailing the team out. So you need his goaltending to bail out the defense, but he hasn't like, he's been good, but he hasn't been like great. And you kind of need him to be great if all your other.
They're kind of this weird team where, like, everything feels like it's okay outside of Kaprizov and Boldy, because those guys are awesome, right? Like,
yeah, those are just lay that out. Good things in Minnesota.
Those guys are amazing, and I like one of the only reasons I will ever watch the Wild normally. Just their chemistry is ridiculous. It's like the things they hung their hat on last year to make the playoffs. Outside of those two, was a really strong defense and really good goaltending. And right now, when the defense isn't good and the goaltending is not elite, you see what's happening. Because Kaprizov and Boldy can only do so much.
I was going to say, it's funny too, because they made the playoffs last year despite Kaprizov missing almost half the year too, right?
Because the defense and goaltending were really good.
We're that good. But the problem is they're not that good this year, and it's like Kaprizov and Boldy can't make up for all this. They can't make up for all of these struggles you've had, right? So this team, like,
also
they need Faber to be better defensive.
And certain guys on the team just look old, man. Like, this is a low-key, like, Spurgeon, I don't know, man. Like, Spurgeon, Tarasenko, like, as good as Tarasenko's been here and there, like, they just look... This team looks slow outside of the Kaprizov line, which is another problem. And if you look at the division, it's a very fast-paced division. And that's another problem you're facing, where, like, I think maybe outside of the non-Thomas Kyrou minutes, like, St. Louis might be the only team. Every other team is fast. And it creates issues when, again, like, you're playing a more slower, methodical style against a slower, methodical control style outside of Kaprizov and Boldy against these teams that are just their plan is to just blitz and play fast, you're kind of in trouble. This is the team I'm like more concerned on because I think there's like of all the 3 teams you mentioned, the team I'm the most concerned about because there's just a fundamental mismatch both of the way they're deploying people and like the
How they match up
fundamentals they
against
hang their
teams.
hat on.
And how they
The
match up
fundamentals
against
they
other
hang their
teams in
hat
the
on
division,
just
too.
aren't there.
Also, they're again, like I said, they're in the best. I'd argue the best division in the league, right? And they're up against teams that like are just a lot fat. Like Colorado, for example, just pure speed, right? Like they're not equipped to handle that. Like, and they're not equipped. Like Utah's been like they're like a fast, fun and gun kind of offense. Not very well equipped to handle that either. And then like Edmonton, like again, there's always the McDavid or sorry, not Edmonton. What am I saying? Like even again, there's other teams in this division that you just like you're scared of. Like the Jets' first line, you still got to worry about that. Like Velarde, for some reason, will just score goals wherever the fuck he stands. Connor Scheifele, that always works. And like even the Blackhawks, too, right? Their young forwards are at least like they're fast. It's kind of like a Fast and Furious. Like are their defensemen not that good? Yeah. But like again, you have to worry about the offense of the Blackhawks too. And like even when they have guys like Knight that are kind of like balling out, your margin for error just continues to get like worse and worse, right? When the teams that are in your division are supposed to be like worse.
I think the ultimate thing is too. I can't really point to a fix here. Like, there's no again unless Booyam Channels.
There's no trade.
Like
There's no trade you can make that'll fix like any one of the problems, right? Like,
but there's no one internally either that I can just point to and be like, yeah, that guy can just take that if that guy takes a leap, like unless Booyam Channels like rookie Cale Makar, like there's really not like this team is, I hate to say it, like is kind of who they are.
Yeah, like there's not one single trade that'll fix like their like if you look at their lines as a whole, it just again apart from the Rossi, like they're doing Rossi, Zuccarello, Kaprizov, which I guess is fine. I think they're trying to balance out like having Boldy on the second line just so like maybe if they can get more offense out of their second line kind of thing. But like again, like Eriksson, like he's a good center, but he doesn't. I don't like him as even a second line center, right? Because he just doesn't generate very much offense, right? There's not a lot of playmaking on that line. Like they just need so much. Like they're missing a second line forward. They're missing.
I think he's fine as a second line center. You just need to supplement him with really good wing talent, and but they
don't have that, or they don't have enough of that.
Yeah.
Because like
I think the problem is like fundamentally what this roster is like they're like the center depth just always has been kind of a problem, and the wing depth outside of Kaprizov and Boldy has been a problem. And now you're looking at guys that are plugging the roster. Like the guys that you're looking to fill are like 35-year-old Marcus Johansson, 34-year-old Vladimir Tarasenko, 30-something-year-old Matt Zuccarello. Like it's a weirdly older team. And there's just, I thought this team maybe with the continuity would start at least a bit warm, especially if like Gustafsson and defense, because Gustafsson and defense should play, but the defense starting off as cold as it is, Gustafsson not being elite but being okay, has just done in like, because Gustafsson and Wallstedt have both basically been league average or close to, and like if they're not elite and your defense is playing bad and you can't score, it's just a bad recipe.
Yeah, I think even with Wallstedt, like I don't think he's been. Let me just check. He hasn't been. He actually just been below average essentially. Like he hasn't been
slightly, but like he's better than Fleury was last year. But like again, slightly like league average to slightly below. But like that's not what you need if you're this team, and that's the issue.
Yeah, they need the elite goaltending because like the problem is there's not any trade that or guys coming up that can help fix the other issues. So they just need their goaltending to be better, realistically, and they need their defensemen like Faber to get better defensively. And we know Faber can be good defensively, but for some reason I don't know if you've been able to pinpoint the reason, but for some reason this year he just hasn't looked good, right? So they just gotta hope that those internal improvements like happen. Otherwise, they're kind of just cooked for this.
It's a long year. It's gonna be a long year. And the worst part is it's not even a fun year because like this team right now is this team by far to me is like one of the most unwatchable teams in the league outside of Kaprizov and Boldy.
Is the only good thing they've basically done is they got the Kaprizov extension? Is that the only good thing you can say?
And Boldy's contract is pretty good too.
Yeah, but I mean, like, because like, well, the biggest worry was Kaprizov was going to walk, right? Because there was a lot of rumors that he wasn't going to sign. Apparently, just offering him $1 million.
And when you watch this team now, people go, "Well, how is Kaprizov worth so much?" Imagine what this team would look like without him. That's why he's worth that much.
Yeah, exactly.
Like this team would be the Calgary Flames without him.
I mean, maybe not as bad as the Flames, but they'd be pretty close. Like, because the Flames are just downright, like, there literally is no offensive talent in the Flames. Like, at least here I'd be like, well, there's a goal.
Yeah, like, there's no panicking about the Flames because we knew they would suck. There's no panicking about.
Yeah, but we're panicking for Minnesota because like they had at least, I want to say they at least have playoff aspirations, and it doesn't look like those playoff aspirations are going to happen at this point. At least so far from what we've seen.
Mm-hmm. I wouldn't be surprised if they finished below Nashville, which is sad because I thought they'd be a bit better, but yeah,
I think I did see an article where Nashville's waiting to sell off their veterans, so I don't think they'll finish below Nashville, but they're definitely not making the playoffs. I don't think. Like, at least I don't think playoffs are a realistic option for them.
For sure. All right. Was there anything else you wanted to talk about today, or was there?
Not necessarily. I think we covered the main two contracts, and then like it's early in the season. Like I don't want to. We try not to overreact to things early in the season, but
we do not press the panic button here. We do not.
Like even with fantasy hockey, like we did an episode last week, and like even then we're not like you and I aren't panicking when it comes to that because like I'm like what 1-3, and you're like what like 2-1.
2-1. I'm like,
okay, close.
Yeah, for better or worse, we're patient to a fault, so we're not gonna get the hardcore doomer reaction, but yeah, sometimes maybe we're not like the hottest to it, but I'd rather be patient than like start to become like a 50-50 right or wrong hot take kind of thing. So yeah. All right, guys. Well, that's us signing out here for today. It's late night, so I kind of want to hit the gym and go to bed. So for us at Tone the Crease, I'm SJ. That's WillyDubz, and we're signing out.
We're signing out. See you guys later. Peace.